Okay, everybody that's been waiting for this like the last 15 minutes. I know you guys are all so impatient. Oh my goodness.
Your version of time is not consistent, Steve. This has been 30 minutes.
Whatever. You know what? I'm trying to placate my audience here. Okay, you know what? It has been about 25, 30 minutes. Anyways, Dr. Troy Lawrence is here. He has joined us. He's a chiropractor. He's going to be talking about young creationism. I have a lot of people in here. We're not all going to be over talking each other. We're going to take turns. We're actually be talking specifically in regards to some specific questions relating to young creationism. I do not want him to feel overwhelmed. I don't want this to be a sharpshooting thing where you're just kind of throwing things at him. I want this to be a very above board conversation dealing with the actual science in regards to young creationism. With full disclosure, Troy, everybody here doesn't accept young creationism. I'm not going to kid you on that. There are some theists in here. There are some non-theists in here. There's across the board a eclectic dynamic of different positions, but for the most part, I think everybody in here right now is somebody who accepts evolutionary theory, does accept the age of the Earth to be about 4.5 billion years old. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of ask you questions from a young Earth positions. We kind of have read your first chapter to one of your books, including some of your physics stuff, and we've also read Paul's thing that he edited, the reasons for accepting a young Earth creationist. I believe the name of the pamphlet was. So is that okay with you so far? Does that sound good?
Oh, you have to unmute him, Steve.
Well, he has to unmute himself.
Yeah, he has to unmute himself.
Yeah. I really can't. Actually, I kind of could. I have to go to the control panel to do it.
Okay. I'm having some technical difficulties here, so work with me.
No, we're in no rush, but I do have an echo, so I don't know if it's you or somebody else.
It's Pro.
Are your headphones plugged in?
Your headphones plugged in, yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Troy, but it is you.
There, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I worked on my
first
computer.
That sounds like Sandy's phone.
All right, what am I asking? Everybody mute across the board so we can figure this out. Okay, testing? Yes, Troy.
It's me. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Sam didn't mute.
Oh, yeah. Testing? Yeah, no. It's still, it's Troy.
Okay.
So, there's a couple of reasons you may have echo. If you go to your sound card, you might have your sound card set to stereo mix. And you need the audio to just go through your headphones and not the speakers.
Yeah, he should know surely whether they're coming through the speakers or not.
Or he could just mute while he's not talking.
It's sorting this out.
How about he just mutes when you ask questions and then he unmutes and then he answers?
All right, we're going to give that a shot. So, again, I'm going to introduce my guest here, Dr. Troy Lawrence. He's a chiropractor, a young creationist. Would you like to tell us something about yourself before we start asking you kind of in-depth questions about genetics?
We need to fix this.
Yeah, this is going to be
when he's not talking.
Is the sound coming out of the speakers or just the headphones?
It's just coming out of the speakers.
Ah, well, there's the problem.
The speakers off.
Well, you can unplug. Can you not unplug the speakers if the worst comes to the worst? Is it not coming out of the headphones at all?
I guess I could reduce. Oh, here's a mixer. I can click on that.
Or you could reduce the volume on the speakers.
Or you just click the speakers off.
All right, how's that?
Testing.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
No, still got audio. Still got echo.
Turn it down a little bit more. Okay.
Testing.
Yeah, just turn your speakers completely off. It's an on-off switch.
Yeah, plug your headphones in for your audio.
Okay.
Are you on Windows or Mac?
Windows.
Okay, right click the volume control.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it doesn't echo when you speak, Doc.
Yeah, no,
Troy.
actually,
It
you know what?
echoes
That's
when we
good.
speak.
No, we're
Oh,
good.
it's
We're
working.
good. Yeah, it's good.
There we go.
So, anyways, Dr. Troy Lawrence, go ahead and introduce yourself. Again, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. You've obviously watched our hangout with Paul Humbert. This was not, anything shotgunning. So, I got it. Anyway, go ahead, Troy.
All right, so you'll have an echo, but will everybody else have an echo?
Yes. Everyone who's not you has an echo.
Okay, so this is how it's going to go, guys. Steve, you're moderating, right?
Yeah, it's really bad echo.
No, he's got to mute when he's not talking.
You have to. Okay. Let's just. Can I mute him? Okay, I muted him. All right. Now, Steve, now we'll have to be very systematic here. So, when we each talk, we're going to have to mute Troy. And then when when we finish talking, or when we finish responding, or even asking a question, then you unmute yourself, you talk, and then mute yourself, and then we continue. So let's do it that way.
All right, Troy, you can control D will mute and unmute. So if you're on Windows, Control D, you can mute and unmute. So hit Control D, talk, and then Control D to mute. And what I'll do is I will mute while you're not talking. Is there else?
I don't understand why Troy can't just simply unplug the speakers. If he's actually getting sound through the headphones, surely he could just remove mechanically.
I'm not getting sound through the headphones when I plug it in.
You're not getting sound through the headphones.
Oh, I see.
Can you turn down the volume on the speakers?
Yeah, when I do this, I don't. You don't.
No. Take the headphones off. Turn down the volume. Go to the volume dial or whatever the hell is on your speakers.
All right.
Okay. Still, it's better.
It's better.
Better.
I think we can work with that.
Or can he move the mic? Is the microphone attached to the computer, or is it independent?
Okay. Volume's down. Is that better?
Testing.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yes, we've got to do the testing.
It's acceptable. I guess.
Oh, that wasn't bad. Yes,
It's better. Yeah.
All right. Go ahead. Go ahead. We'll try like this. I can deal with this. So go ahead, Troy. Introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Troy Lawrence. I'm a young Earth creationist, and I have written a book to bring forth the science that supports the Genesis creation account in global flood.
Now, Troy, I mean, you've got my emails and you've got Ruf's emails. And by the way, when I'm talking, you're going to have to mute, or we do have an echo. So I'm actually muting you now. Now it's clear, so we can hear you. So what you're going to do is you're going to hit Control D to mute and Control D to unmute. So right now you're muted. So you've actually read on emails. I know you had read Ruf's emails, specifically in regards to some of the Dr. Tompkins claims on AIG. Which is Answers in Genesis, and IRC, which is Institute of Creation Research. Are you kind of familiar with the topic as far as genetics? What Tompkins is saying, that HE2 is not a fusion. Are you somewhat familiar with that argument?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the argument of the fusion of chromosome number 2 and Tompkins' rebuttal of the information, and Ken Miller's discussion regarding the fusion.
Awesome. That, and I think this is going to work well when you mute when you're not talking, and you don't mute when you're talking. This is going to actually be okay, because we do have a little bit of a echo. Hopefully, Rube will come back. So right now, the point of contention is mainly in the Great Debate community is that some people are actually saying that human chromosome 2 is not a fusion. It's not a telomeric to telomeric fusion. Everybody here has read Tompkins' paper or manuscript. I mean, we're all familiar with it. Some of the questions that Tompkins brought up was that he thinks that there is an alternate transcript across the fusion site that has a transcript, and that's highly expressed. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I'm familiar with the highly expressed transcript.
Okay, I'm gonna let you go first. Go ahead and explain, if you can, why you think Tompkins is correct, why you think that it is highly expressed, why you think that the DDX1102 gene goes across the fusion site, and then I'm gonna actually ask other people in here, which I will tell you right out. People here have a background in physics, bioinformatics, genetics, and let's see what else we got, and just basically science-oriented people. So.
Steve, I think it would be beneficial for the audience for you to explain why a human chromosome 2 is relevant.
Sure. You know what? Absolutely. What the contention is basically is very simple. When it comes to human phylogeny, the great apes have 48 chromosomes, but the humans have 46. So we're diploid number 46. And one reason we can explain why we have diploid number 46 is that there was a chromosomal fusion between pan-troglodyte 12 and 13, which is chimpanzee chromosome 12 and 13, also now known as 2A and 2B. So they actually fused together in a telomeric head-to-head arrangement. And this was what formed eventually what's called human chromosome number 2. This is an explanation of why we only have diploid number 46 compared to all other members of Hominidae of 48. So it's something that doesn't really prove evolution, but what it does show is that according to evolutionary modeling, this is how we arrived at our chromosomal number. Would you agree with that, Troy? You have to unmute, Troy.
I think it's a hypothesis. When you look at the chromosome number 2, to assume that it was a result of a fusion. An equal assumption could be it was a result of a fission. So you can't look at the fusion or the alleged fusion of the second chromosome of the human chromosome and lead to the notion of supporting the preconceived thought that humans came from a common ancestor. Though it's something that appears to be so, it doesn't necessarily suggest that that is the science behind it. In other words, something that appears to be isn't necessarily true.
Can you explain to us the difference between what would be a fusion event and a fission event, chromosomally speaking?
Sure. So a coming together of two to form one, or a separation. So since humans, let's go with creation. And on creation, humans are created on the 6th day, Adam and Eve, and primates were made prior to that. So from a creationist point of view, a creationist would say, okay, chimpanzees, gibbons, and primates and such came from God. And so they have the genetic makeup, chromosomal makeup of God. So when God created humans, there's a lot of just copy and paste going on. We do this when we work with software. When we're working with software, we're not going to write a completely new program and different program to do the same function. We're just going to copy and paste. And so it seems a simple leap in the hypothesis to say, since we're made in the image of God, we're going to do the same thing that God did. So since we do that, then it's a next step is to say, the hypothesis is that's what God did, is that he copied and pasted genetic information that would produce similar proteins to produce similar functions. So that's what would explain why chimps have similar DNA structure to humans, such as like every creature that has a skeletal structure or enamel for their nail, or enamel for their teeth, or for their nails, or for their skin, whatever characteristics they share, there's a copy and paste going on with the DNA structure to produce the same protein that produces the same component.
Okay. What I want to do is I'm actually gonna ask you a question really quick, and I want a very brief explanation, about 30 seconds, because I really kind of want to time things. I got to mute you. I'm sorry. And it's nothing against you, Troy. It's just I'm getting a lot of feedback. I'm gonna ask you a question. I want you to give a 30 seconds response, then I'm gonna give it to Sam. Ask the same kind of question. Why is this not a fusion? When we look at the actual region, we look at the gene, and we look at the chromosome, we look at the actual base pairs at that chromosome, we see a very, very telltale head-to-head fusion. We see a repeat of a telomeric repeat plus this complementary repeat. Do you disagree that that is a head-to-head fusion? If so, why? And then I'm going to ask Sam the same question, and it only take about 30 seconds to respond. But why you think this is
Well,
not
I actually had a
classic?
brief point to make rather than interrogating him. Which
Sure.
is
You want to go first? Go ahead, Sam.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do a lot of programming for my lab work. And in fact, that's entirely what I do. I don't do any wet lab work. And I've written a lot of programs. And it kind of seems like, you know, if we're hypothesizing that God is all powerful and divine, right? When I write a program, and let's say I'm borrowing code from another program that I've written, I do that all the time. You're spot on with that. But the thing is I'll trim it up and make it efficient. And so you could condense all of the gene content that would be necessary and all the little imperfections in the genome of the chimpanzee into a much more compact genome for humans. It's easy to say if both these things were efficient, that this hypothetical account for which evidence hasn't really been presented, this hypothetical account was plausible, but instead we see the exact same inefficiencies between each genome. Like there's nothing you would expect. Let's say we don't want humans to get cancer as much. Just a hypothetical, right? So the most commonly mutated gene in cancer is TP53. Turns out that elephants, who have many more cells than us, live far longer, actually have a lower cancer rate because they have 14 copies, I think, of TP53. Well, why don't we have that many copies, right? There are more and less efficient ways to utilize what we could find in a chimpanzee genome to engineer a human genome, but we don't see that. We see the same inefficiencies.
To address that, it seems fair to suppose that since we live in the same environmental conditions and subjected to the same cosmic energies that result in mutations to the genome, to the DNA, that you would see some similarities as a result of being subjected to the same environmental conditions, such as like if a virus comes and wipes out life in that particular area, you would see markers of that virus in all life that was in that area that survived and then moved out and multiplied. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know how that was related to what I just said.
Yeah, I'm kind of confused here too, Troy. Yeah, Chris, let me give you 1 second. I'm kind of going to say that I'm not sure how either things actually result. Dealt with the actual question. Troy, you said that you don't think it's a fusion. You call it a fission. But when you look at the actual site, do you think that it looks like a telomeric to telomeric head-to-head fusion? Do you agree with that, or you disagree with that?
I'm sharing the screen, by the way, Steve. You want to?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So to me, sure. I don't have a problem saying it looks like a fusion, but that doesn't mean that it is.
Okay.
Because something looks like it is not the proof text to say that it is, because looks can be deceiving. If someone's standing on the Earth, they're going to look at the stars rotating around them and get a different view than what is reality as far as Earth orbiting around the sun. If someone is looking at a mirage or an oasis, that doesn't actually match up with reality as well. So just because something is apparent, it doesn't actually mean that that's what is truth.
All right. I'm going to say one thing. I'm going to toss over to Ruth real quick. What you said about what things look like. Can you give us a quick alternative explanation of why the chromosomal makeup right here, the way the synergy is such that the human chromosome 2 relates to the chimpanzee chromosome 2A and 2B is almost perfect. It's damn near perfect. Now, unless there was a chromosomal fusion, without invoking any kind of supernatural causation, staying within the lines of methodological naturalism, staying within the lines of a naturalistic explanation for what is being displayed right now on the screen that Hansel is displaying. What is a naturalistic explanation for what you are seeing without invoking a supernatural causation? And I'm going to turn over to Ruif on that same question.
Did you want me to go first?
Please.
Again, I mean, it hasn't been proven that that's actually the case. It's just something that we're observing and saying, hey, we're looking at the observation and it suggests this. So the hypothesis that we're working with is this. It's not, you can't make the leap of saying, well, because there's an apparent view of this and it fits my notion of what I believe to be true, then therefore you who don't agree with my preconceived notion, let's say, of common ancestor to humans, then you have to disprove that it's not true. Well, wait a minute, why do I have to disprove something that's not true when it hasn't even come to merit that you've proven that it is true?
Well, can you give us a plausible explanation, though? I'm asking, can you give us a plausible explanation of what can cause this other than a telomeric fusion? And then I'm going to turn over to Ruif on the same question. Other than what it appears to be, other than what it appears when you look at the nucleotide sequence at that fusion site, can you give us a plausible scientific explanation of what that is if it is not a telomeric to telomeric fusion? And then again, I'm going to ask you, Ruif, the same question. Troy, you have 10 seconds.
I can't answer that in 10 seconds, but
30.
What you're doing is asking me to explain away something that you haven't proven to be actually factual yet. You're presenting a hypothesis and then asking me to disprove your hypothesis to not be truthful. That's backwards in science. So we had to work with, when the claim of vestigial organs came about, there was a lot of science that hadn't caught up to the claims of vestigial organs. So when someone said an appendix was evidence that we evolved because it's no longer a functional organ, well, the modern medical science wasn't there at the time to disprove the hypothesis. So imagine people in those days, and even still today, some people use vestigial organs as exemplative arguments to further the cause of macroevolution, but they haven't realized that it's trying to disprove something that's not true. You're trying to work to prove a negative. And it would be like me asking you, I contend that all watermelons are blue inside until you disrupt the skin and fracture the skin. Then it instantaneously turns red. Then I turn it over to you and say, can you disprove what I said is not true?
All right.
So I
don't think you're answering the question. I don't think you're questioning at all, because the question is very specific. Is what is an alternate explanation of what we're actually observing? And I'm going to ask Ruif the same question. Ruif, what we're observing at the fusion site, the actual telomeric sequence that we see, the repeats that we see at the fusion site, and the end arrangements. I'm going to ask you, as a person who follows evolution, but I'm going to ask you very specifically, take yourself out of being an evolutionist. Is there any other explanation other than just pure divine intervention that would cause this kind of arrangement? Scientifically speaking, what do you think you do this?
I'm one of those people that actually objects to people using this as evidence for common descent. So I don't have an evolutionary bias towards it, even though I believe common descent to be true. But the fusion looks pretty much exactly like we would expect it to look if two chromosomes whose telomeres have been depleted and fused together. From Dr. Lawrence's comments, he seems to have a lot of misplaced doubt or over doubt. I mean, we can induce fusions in a lab in mice and in all sorts of other cell lines. We see fusions in the wild, and we can get the DNA sequence for those fusions and see what they look like as well. And the fusion site in human chromosome 2 looks like we would expect it to look, given what we can see in fusions in the wild in these other species that are non-controversial. In particular, I'm talking about a species called the Indian muntjac, which is a kind of deer, but it's not the only example. I use this example because Dr. Tompkins himself accepts that these are fusions, but then he hasn't seemed to have made the connection between the similarity in these fusions and the similarity to human chromosome 2. So I guess my main point is that there seems to be a lot of doubt that seems misplaced, or what's the word? Too much doubt to the level where it's
hyperskepticism.
That's the word. Good word. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, surely the point is that the evidence, what we find is exactly what we would expect to see if a fusion has occurred. All the letters, and we can actually see where the old telomere from one chromosome is touching, and the telomere going the opposite direction, another chromosome coming together with obviously bits of the telomere kicked out. And what we see is what we would expect. And for that to happen randomly, we would have to account for this sort of vestigial telomere kicking around, and the most reasonable explanation is to say that these two genes have fused because they are identical. The two, as we're looking at that diagram that we had up there a moment ago, the genes, the chromosomes, if you match them together, are identical to the one that we've got, except for the vestigial telomere. So, you know, if this was a murder case, if this was in a trial and someone was being accused of this, the overwhelming result of the jury would be that this is a fusion.
All right, Sam,
I'd like to chime in on that. I'd like to chime in on that. And the reason I would like to...
Go ahead. I'm going to let you go first, and then Sam, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. The reason I'd like to chime in is because there's an equal and plausible argument to say it's not a fusion, but a fission. In other words, a separation of one chromosome to form the extra for the chimpanzee. So the equal argument of saying from the primate chromosome you fused to get to the one human, so therefore it explains the reduction of human chromosomes versus primates. Allow me the argument to say primates instead of chimpanzees, even though I presume you all would
sure. You use chimpanzees and troglodytes. We're familiar with it.
But the argument can equally plausibly go the opposite direction and say
no, because it wouldn't, because you're starting off with the vestigial.
Rumpus, you have to let him talk. You cannot.
Yeah, Rumpus, you got to back off a little bit. Okay, Sam, let me toss this to you real quick. What Troy's saying is making sense, that it's actually a fission, vice a fusion? Because I'm not quite understanding the idea here that is a fission means to separate, comparison to a fusion where you have two separate chromosomes in a diploid number that's higher in a gene pool that is actually combined together at some point to form a lower diploid number species. So what is he saying when it comes to becoming a fission vice a fusion?
Well, it sounds like you kind of asked the same question. Okay. Well, I mean, I kind of had something more substantive there. I mean, first off, I don't really know much about chromosomal fissions. If he wants to, if anyone wants to say what it would actually look like for a fission, we know that it looks exactly what you would expect like for a fusion. But I think that there's a fundamental misunderstanding here on the part of Troy of what science actually does, right? So we have a model. The model is that humans and other great apes share a common ancestor. We know that what is going to happen here is that if, you know, in order for that to happen and humans to maintain the essential genes that are carried on, you know, one or the other chromosome, that there had to be a chromosomal fusion, right? This is an instant prediction. And if this isn't the case, right, if this isn't the case, than humans and apes, we really need to take a look at common ancestry for humans and apes, and other great apes, excuse me. He seems to think that what a scientific explanation is just simply retrofitting any set of statements to a state of affairs that he likes. That's kind of the impression that I'm getting. And I find that to be kind of worrisome, because that's not, I mean, that's really not what's being done here. We're not just retrofitting, explanations to the state of affairs. Rather, this is a necessary prediction. I mean, we're dealing with things, theories are never fully proved. It's
May I address that?
Their predictions.
Yes, I want to reiterate something here. Troy, this is a prediction that evolutionary theory would predict, that the reason why to explain why we have diploid 246, there had to be a chromosomal fusion, not fission. That is something that the model predicts. Now, before you actually address that, I do want to throw this over to CRISPR real quick. CRISPR, I want to ask you the same question I asked Sam. Why would this be particularly a fission? Because I'm not understanding how the fission is being used here in comparison to what a fusion would be, where you have a reduction of diploid number.
Yeah, so the real issue with it being a fission is that for that explanation to make sense, you've got to assume that all of the other species of great ape independently experienced fission events at the same place, as opposed to a single fusion event. I think that's much more likely.
Yeah, that's very good.
All right, Troy, would you like to address that, actually? Both Sam and what CRISPR just said?
Sure. So I'm not saying that it is a fission. I'm saying, as someone weighs in and says, it appears as though it was a fusion going from a chimp to a human, they would have to equally say it also appears as a fission of going from a human to a chimp.
Well, but it's hold on, can you mute? It's not equally likely though, because going from if it's a fusion event, right, then you only need one species to have a fusion, right, for everything else to be explained. But if it's a fission event, right, you need multiple species, not just to have the fission event, but to have it in the same spot in the genome, right? And so if it's a fusion, it can happen anywhere, right? And that's.
Can I interrupt as well, CRISPR?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, the fission idea doesn't make much sense to me, purely because why would we see a fusion signature in human chromosome 2 at all?
Exactly, that's the point I was desperate to make. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's idiotic, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Ruhif, correct me if I'm wrong here. Again, I'm the moderator. I'm going to be the most independent layperson in the world right now. Assume I know nothing about this topic. I've looked at the actual site, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ruhif, but at the actual site, it has telomeric repeats of TTA, GGG, and then complementary afterwards, and many repeats of those hexameric repeats.
Yes.
If that is not the case, where it is a telomeric to telomeric fusion, I'm asking you very sincerely, what other things scientifically could cause that? Okay, you have it on the screen right now.
Oh,
So you have the telomeric repeat right here. It is a degraded region. I think everybody across the board accepts this has been degraded, right? So there are not going to be pristine telomeric repeats. But right here, we're looking at something that shows there are absolute telomeric repeats with the complementary anti-repeats from a 5' to 3' end. So I'm asking you, Ruhif, what do you think could cause this other than a telomeric to telomeric repeat? Or excuse me,
I can't think of any other explanation. Basically, prior to the fusion, the pristine telomeric repeats must have been depleted, and that makes the chromosomes susceptible to fusion. They will deplete to a point where they reach the subtelomeres, which is what we see, what people call degenerate arrays of telomeric repeats. They're only a few hundred base pairs long. Once they get to that point, they might be susceptible to fusion. So it's not, we should not expect hundreds of thousands of telomeric repeats, we should expect what we see in other non-controversial fusions, and that is these degenerate repeats.
All right. Let me ask Troy. Okay, Troy, the same question. Here's to you. What would it be what you're looking at right here, which is actually, if you accept that is the actual nucleotide sequencing, what could this be other than a telomeric to telomeric fusion?
So you're asking for an explanation to debunk what hasn't been proven to be true yet. So you presented a hypothesis of what appears, and simply because take vestigial organs. So when someone said that the appendix indicated
Hold on, I got.
Well, hang on. We're not talking.
Yeah,
Wait,
no,
hang
wait,
on. I got this. We're not talking about vestigial organs. We're not talking about what may or not be vestigial. We're talking about the very specific thing we're looking at right here. Here's your data. So Troy, I'm asking you very specifically. Here's the data. What would you say would cause this data, other than a telomeric to telomeric fusion?
I can rephrase this in a way.
Sure, if you want. Go ahead, Sam. Yes.
So
please.
let's say that I'm in the lab, right, and we have this popular account of what's the case, but it's let's say that for some reason there's some incongruity. The onus is on me. And this is what happens with competing hypotheses. The onus on me is to present another hypothesis that accounts for the data, but explains it in some superior way. Either it makes a new prediction, or it more completely explains what's going on. Because we do have a hypothesis that I think I don't know if you agree, but I think that everyone else agrees, is completely consistent with what we're seeing on the screen here. And so the onus on you is not to try to say, oh, well, I could imagine any, consistent account. It's having a consistent account that performs better on a scientific basis.
Yes. So Troy,
also,
that's the question right there.
and also there's a question of does he accept that that is actually the sequence data, that is an accurate sequencing of that position, right?
That's a good question.
Let's
ask him.
Then.
Yeah, let's ask him. Troy, do you accept this as the actual sequencing?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay, then what would be your alternative hypothesis?
Well, simply put, the other hypothesis hasn't been proven as fact. It's merely a hypothesis. So you don't gain any ground by going to someone else and saying, aha, you don't have a working model to explain
I'm sorry, but
that we can repeat in a lab. So you haven't proven that your hypothesis of what you view to be apparent is actually true.
Well,
that there was a fusion of a primate, and as a result of the fusion came as a result of an evolutionary step towards Homo sapien. Or
Troy, that doesn't make sense. We're asking you. I'm asking you very sincerely. If you had to come up with a plausible hypothesis to explain the data that you're looking at in a realm of scientific methodological naturalism, what would cause this?
Again, your argument's not going to gain ground when someone else has. In other words, let's go back in time when the vestigial organs were first postulated.
Vestigial organs.
Troy, we're not arguing vestigial organs. I'm not even suggesting a hypothesis.
That no one at the time had a reasonable argument to refute the vestigial organs. But you know what? It took time for modern medical science to catch up and refute the vestigial organs.
Well, Troy,
now,
with all due respect,
Troy,
with all due respect, we're not arguing vestigial organs here. We're not talking about organs. We're talking about what the data is on the screen. I'm asking you very sincerely, not dealing with any vestigial organs. What hypothesis, what conjecture do you have within a scientific realm to explain the data you're looking at? I'm not saying that our data is absolutely right. I'm not saying that human chromosome 2 fusion is absolutely right. I do agree with that 100%. But even if we did not, even if you looked at this objectively, what do you suggest explains this data from your point of view other than a fusion?
Well, like I said, if someone accepts the fusion notion, they would have to equally say that it can go in the opposite direction.
No,
and
it's
that,
not equal.
from a
No,
fission
explain
point of
that.
view.
You're not paying attention to
So
what.
every time I
I don't.
speak, someone's interrupting me. This is not
I
a
don't. I
conversation.
don't think you're. I don't think you're answering the question, Troy. And we don't. I'm serious. We're not trying to interrupt you. I promise you. But you're not answering the question directly.
Well, I
think
apologize.
what
I
he's
got
asking
impatient.
for is an
Can I just say
alternate
something?
model, not a. He's asking for an alternate model to explain the data, not for you to debunk the current
Yes.
hypothesis, but to offer.
Yes,
an
exactly.
alternate
Thank you,
model.
Isaiah.
Could I provide a little analogy?
Well, hang on. Hang on.
Oh.
I don't want Troy to feel overwhelmed. Go ahead and speak what you have to say, Troy. But I'm honestly telling you, you're not answering our questions in regards to what is your alternate hypothesis.
Like I said, why does someone have to come up with an alternate hypothesis when your working hypothesis hasn't even been merited to being actually true? It's just merely a conjecture, an assertion.
Hold on.
It's something based on what's apparent. That has no relevance that it's actually true.
Do you agree?
I have a relevant question.
Sure.
For
Go ahead, Sam.
Troy, what would actually merit it being true?
Do you agree that it's not hasn't reached the point of being true?
Yeah, no, it is true.
No, he's asking me. I would say it has met its burden of proof. But I'm asking you, right? You can't.
How has it met its burden of proof beyond
you can't just shift the question on me. That's a slimy tactic. I'm sorry, but I'm going to call a spade a spade.
Okay.
I asked you a question, which is, the magic of science is that you ask, what could prove me wrong, right? You go in with this assumption, and you go in and you say, well, this could be the case, so I would expect this set of observations, right? That's fundamentally what it is. You're trying to design a way of making sure that you're correct and proving yourself either right or wrong. And this is why we do experimental controls, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm asking, if you're going to assert, this isn't true, this hasn't met its burden of proof, I'm asking, like, what would that actually constitute for you?
Well, you said it's met the burden of truth, but yet all you've done is said it appears to be so. That's not meeting the burden of proof.
Can I just make a...
Troy,
I'd like to chip in for once.
Yeah, Rumpus, I'll give you next. But Troy, we're asking you very simply.
Well, can I answer that?
Yeah, can I say that one first? We've given
Yeah. Well, okay, go ahead.
We've given an example of what we think it means, the data, what we interpret it. We're asking you very simply for an alternative hypothesis.
He doesn't have to provide one, Steve. He can just say we're wrong.
He doesn't
have to provide an alternative explanation. He can just say we're wrong. We haven't met the burden of proof.
Hey, Troy.
But can I just make a point now? I want to make a little analogy. If we found a car that was joined in the middle by welding, and we knew that the alternative is then we've got two other cars, two halves of cars that we'd found, and we knew that what existed beforehand, or we were comparing it to. We said how would one come to be the other? We would obviously say that the car that has the welding, where the join is of the other two together, is obviously a combination of the other two. And we've got this vestigial telomere there where the join is. And we know, and as Ruhif said, we don't find these sequences elsewhere except on telomeres. So we know that it's a vestigial telomere because we know that nothing else produces that pattern of bases. So we know we've got a vestigial telomere at the ends of the chromosome. And so the alternative explanation that Troy's coming up with, that it goes one way rather than the other, well, if it was to be a split, it could split anywhere, and that wouldn't account for the vestigial, the evidence we can see of the vestigial telomeres. So one way we've got an explanation for what we can see evidence. The other way that he's suggesting does not account for what we see. So therefore, our explanation is much, much better. And there's no more evidence we'd expect. Everything we would expect is there in chromosome 2 from a result of a fusion. There's nothing missing. We have a superb explanation. It explains everything we see. Your explanation doesn't. Therefore, ours is better.
Well, hang on, Rumpus. So far, he has not offered an alternative explanation. He is not required.
It takes a fission. I'm just disputing the fission possibility.
Well, I don't understand the fission thing. I mean, we're trying to get to a diploid number of 46. I don't understand what he means by how a fission would do that. Now, I'm asking Fiona the same question here. Fiona, Troy, Dr. Troy, by the way, meet Dr. Fiona. She's a PhD in biology. I'm asking the same question, Fiona. Why is this relevant? I mean, we look at what we're looking at when General put that nucleotide sequence on the board out there. We saw that it looked like clearly you had telomeric sequences juxtaposed against the complementary nucleotide sequence. If that's not a telomeric to telomeric fusion, what else could it possibly be? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things we're losing sight of here is that science doesn't set out to prove anything. And when you formulate your hypothesis, you then design experiments to disprove your hypothesis. You don't design your experiments to support you. You're looking for the things that will actually contradict you, because you only need to find one of them. Now, when it comes to looking at the data for for human chromosome 2, you get your data, you look at your data, and you say, what could explain this data? Some say fusion. Troy says fission. And I would ask him, well, in that case, what is it specifically about that data that says to you fission? I mean, you're suggesting that it went from humans at 46 chromosomes with a break to the 48 chromosomes in a chimp, which would make humans the ancestor of chimps. Now, what is it in the data that would make you say it was a fission rather than a fusion?
First off, I never said it was. I just presented that if someone looks at the chromosomes and they view it one way, they would also have to equally view it the other way. I am not an advocate for fusion or fission, and I'm not a opponent of fusion. I'm merely saying that there's no requirement or there's no detriment in my argument, or there's no addition to your argument if someone doesn't bring a counter hypothesis.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, I think.
But if you're saying that if you state no, it cannot be a fusion because, and you give a reason, you can just say no, it's not a fusion. I don't need to explain why I said that.
Exactly.
And that's why we're saying, what is the alternative? And one other thing I would point out is that when we look at human chromosome 2, we also find the remnants of another centromere.
Thank you, Fiona.
So it's not just this, the actual telomeric region that you're looking at. Human chromosome 2 also has the remnants of another centromere. So it has got its own functioning centromere, but it's also got a remnant exactly where you'd expect it to be.
True.
If head-to-head fusion had taken place. So that's another little bit of evidence that suggests that it would be a fusion and not a fission.
Troy, will you please address that? Actually, that's Fiona, wonderful. When you look at the actual human chromosome 2, you see a cryptic inactive centromere. I think it's 13.1 on the Q-arm or something. You can actually see that it's there. I mean, there's no question there's an inactive centromere, which is predicted by which it would be if you had two chromosomes fused together. So Troy, we have to ask you, we have actually found the cryptic inactive centromere at the exact location it would be had these two primordial, primate pan-troglodyte chromosomes fused. What is your explanation for that, other than they actually fused?
Sure. Tompkins actually said that he found that it wasn't inactive, that there was actually functional information in the area.
So you're suggesting there's two functional?
No, he didn't look at the centromere in his his
I don't think he did either.
No, I've read it like 5 times. He didn't mention it.
I don't remember him mentioning that.
Troy obviously means the telomere. Troy obviously means the telomere.
You're thinking of his
DDX11L2.
There's a functional read-through
Right.
in the
right.
telomeric region. That's nothing to do with the centromere.
Yeah, he suggests there's a functional read-through, but he didn't suggest there's two functional centromeres.
Centromeres.
Yeah, there's one inactive centromere and one actual centromere. But there's a cryptic centromere that he actually showed, but he suggested there's a read-through, but that's not the same as a centromere. Correct?
Yeah, I think the fission argument doesn't make sense based on, number one, there being a telomeric sequence in the middle, and two, the centromere. There's no evidence to support a fission.
Can somebody actually show the secondary centromere in relationship to the chromosome as a
you can bring up one of my blog posts has a picture of it. I'll try and get a link.
Can somebody show that on Riff's blog? Because I want to try to see that there's obviously an active centromere on HE2, but there's obviously an inactive one as well, which was discovered.
Explain what a centromere is.
Sure. The centromere is a point where the chromosome actually divides into two different things during mitosis.
All types of cell division.
Yes.
Sorry, beer. So there's basically what's called a kinetochore, I believe the technical term is.
No, kinetochores, I believe, are the proteins. I can whip out. I have molecular biology.
We're going back here. I used to know all the phases of cell division, but I going back a lot of years here on the different anaphase and prophase
telophase.
But long story short is if you look at PT12 and 13 or 2A and 2B, the centromere on 2B is exactly the same place where we'd expect to find if had those two chromosomes fused together. That's what really needs to be brought to attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve, can you post my blog post somewhere where someone can screen share it?
Yeah, where's that?
The second one.
I'm not. Did you post it? Where'd you post it?
To you personally, Hangouts.
External chat.
All right.
Okay, 1 sec. Yeah.
I posted a picture in the external chat. Someone share that.
Actually, can you post it in the internal? Is that possible, or
just post it in
I can screen share it, but hang on.
I'm just interested. I mean, I think that ultimately, what I'm interested in terms of Troy's case is what the big question that you have to ask whenever addressing a scientific question. I know I'm sort of repeating myself. Is what would prove me wrong, right? So what would prove to him that the chromosomes were fused?
Good, yeah, excellent. And by the way, I hope you guys can see this. This is actually from Cam Miller, but this is actually where the relationship would be if they were fused. And can you scroll up a little bit? Who has General? I think it's you actually. General, can you scroll up a little bit?
Oh, sorry.
Can you scroll up a little bit?
Hold on.
Scroll up.
Yeah.
Scroll down.
Or down. I'm showing
Scroll
you.
down to the next diagram.
Yeah.
You mean for me? Oh,
yes.
What I was on before.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, 1 sec.
The very simplistic where the centromeres be.
Yeah.
No, there we go. Yeah. See, that exactly right there. That's where the centromere number 2, the cryptic or inactive centromere, would be supposedly be found if it was a telomeric to telomeric fusion.
But scroll down a little bit.
And that's where it's found.
Scroll it down to show, please. It's the diagram below that one we want, Han.
Scroll down, General.
He's not. I'll present him. He's not being presented at the moment.
Yeah, I thought it was.
No,
No, it's Steve that was being presented. Steve, you need to scroll down.
Is he
guiding and enthralling
just
as coordinating down. These figures are.
No, it's Steve.
It's Steve. Steve needs to scroll down to the... No,
it's not me. Steve, it's you.
Steve, it's...
Guys,
What am I trying?
let's.
Wait, General.
Can we just get the diagram up, please?
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
presenting
I
to
posted
you.
a picture in the
Okay, give me the link, and
I'll
I'll.
share that.
I'm just presenting you, General.
That's not the one that Ruth gave us.
But that's, you know,
No.
do that. It gives you the idea.
Okay,
Yeah.
what's the link? Because then I'll just.
Guys, I think that you guys can handle this in the side chat.
This is right. Hold on, I've got it. I'll screen share it. Goodness sake.
I think that people.
I think we've circled back on this topic long enough. Let's go to a different topic.
Not yet.
Right.
Yeah, but I think we just need to round
Yeah,
off
I've
the
got
fact
it now.
that we
There-
need to
yeah,
say
there
it
that
is.
all the evidence, what we see, is predicted. We could say if there's a fusion event, we would expect to see the remains of a telomere and the remains of a centromere, and that's exactly what we
Right.
see. We've got we've got a convincing case that would win any argument in a court of law as to what happened here, and there's no
All right, hang on,
evidence for the
hang on,
alternative
I'm
explanation.
presenting
offered by
Fiona
Troy.
right now. Fiona,
Right.
on your screen.
Jesus
on your
Christ!
Screen,
Can we have like a conversation here, people?
yeah, I'm presenting Fiona right now. Fiona,
Right.
describe what we're
this
looking
is,
at.
Right. This is what Ruhef was asking you to present. It's from Ruhef's blog. Okay. Now, this was a diagram that Dr. Tompkins had presented, and he put the centromere way off. Okay. In other words, it wasn't where it was expected to be. But when you actually work it out with the bases, as I think that's how Ruhef did it, you'll notice that the cryptic centromere is exactly where you would expect it to be. So it isn't in the wrong place. It's exactly where you would expect it to be.
Correct, Fiona. This is all from the sequence data. So these locations are precise from the genomes.
Yeah. Now that other diagram up here, how was that diagram done?
Oh,
From the
I can
Unison
explain it.
Prakash photos.
I can explain
Sorry,
it.
say that again.
From the 1982 photographs of chromosomes.
More accurately, it was prepared by Tompkins, looking at those pictures and then guessing, and then just sort of drawing it based on what he thought it looked like.
Right. So that was based on data from 1982 and
Not data.
and a guess.
Yes, mostly the guess.
And this is based on the sequence data.
Correct.
And it puts it exactly where it should be. So the sequence data of the chromosome gives us the cryptic centromere exactly where it's expected to be, should there have been a fusion event of the chimp 2A and 2B to make human chromosome 2. I'll stop screen sharing now.
I'm just wondering, just before we round this off, let me just stop Fiona's. Okay, now this paper I have here, it's actually titled, it's a paper that was released last month. One pedigree we all may have come from. Did Adam and Eve have this is not Adam and Eve, the individuals, but the Y chromosome and mitochondrial have the chromosome 2 fusion. And the paper actually showcases results that it could have been between 0.74 and 4.5 million years ago. And I'm just wondering, is this figure here, figure 1, how they're lining up it says here the alignment of G-band human and chimpanzee metaphase chromosomes demonstrates that a few megabases of subtelomeric regions, mainly repetitive satellite DNA, are absent in the human genome. And so they've lined it actually up, as you can see
General,
here.
I think this is really interesting, but it might be a little bit left of field.
Okay. Now, I was just wondering if it's the same thing what Fiona was talking about, this lining up of, yeah.
I think we're kind of missing the bigger picture here. Troy, let me ask you. You've seen a little bit of what's been going on. Excuse me. The point is that most people are saying this is actually a chromosomal fusion. And the answer, the question we're asking you is, what do you have to offer that this is not a chromosomal fusion? Instead of saying, well, you haven't demonstrated that it is, when the evidence actually supports that it actually is, Why is it not?
Well, first of all, majority doesn't actually equal truth either. Just because the majority is saying we think, that those are just hypotheses. That when someone is bringing a conjecture, an assertion, that doesn't merit the level of
Sure,
truth.
but Troy,
It's like
we're asking
you come
you,
to
Troy.
a region and you meet one person and you say, this is how everything is based on limited information.
Troy, but
Everybody has to agree that we are just in the burgeoning phase of studying DNA, chromosomes, and gathering information. It's premature to make conclusions, and then it's also premature to ask someone to debunk our hypothesis.
So you agree the hypothesis is correct? Troy, you agree that what we're saying looks like a fusion. Everything, all the evidence is as a fusion. Do you agree with that? That all the evidence out there points to the fact that it is a chromosomal fusion. Do you disagree with that or agree?
Okay, Steve, I was in the middle of thought. If I can't speak
go ahead.
and continue my thought, and I'm being interrupted each time, that this is going to be a tough situation to continue dialogue with. Every time I speak, I'm being interrupted. That, by the way, that's the problem that Paul had, and he emailed me, and he said, I would advise you not going in with there.
Well, we're not trying to interrupt you, Paul.
Every time.
Troy, go ahead. You have full range to speak, but we're not trying to interrupt you. We're just trying to keep you on the actual target.
Yeah. Okay. Just let Troy talk.
Yeah. So Troy, go ahead. You have many minutes you want to address what we're asking you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So Troy, also just
hang
quickly,
on. No, hang on. Shh. Let Troy speak.
No, I want him to relate it to how he connects this to a young Earth's model. So why, like, how do you relate it to a 6,000-year-old date?
Well, we're not even after
that's
yet.
a new subject, General.
Yeah, we're not even after General. Yeah, let Troy finish his train of thought. But Troy, I'm not trying. Okay. I'm not trying to shut you down. I'm only asking you to be direct in regards to the topic, and I'm asking you very specifically. We have all said that the data looks like it's a fusion. You're saying it's not. We're only asking you, why is it not? Why do you think the data is not indicating what everybody else thinks it is?
I haven't said whether the data suggests pro or con. You guys have leaped in faith and said that it is a fusion. At best, what you can say is our working hypothesis is it appears to be. That's it. And then you cannot come to someone else and say, prove what is factual wrong. And since you don't have something that's presentable, then your argument is flawed. You guys are using debaters' tactics to establish and provide merit to your hypothesis, and really you're at ground zero presenting a conjecture and saying this is what it looks like. Great. Who cares? It's just a hypothesis. Now let's move forward and study, and finally, you know what? 100 years from now, we'll look back and see what was really actually going on. It takes time for modern science to catch up to wild conjectures. And my example going back was always the vestigial organs, because that's what happened. The claim came forth, but the argument wasn't able to counter yet. It took time for modern medical science to disprove those wild claims of the vestigial organs.
No, I wanted to
my question. Hang on, no, Joe, hang on. I'm going to the next.
And I think it'd be wise if we went to a more merited topic, such as discussion of age of the Earth, light years, galaxy.
We will get into that. I promise you. We will get into that.
I'm fatigued on this subject. I can tell you that.
No, I respect you for that, but I don't think anything's actually been addressed, because the reality is that the overwhelming consensus is that this is a fusion. When any one of us looks at this data, hang on, Sam, that it's a fusion. And all we're asking you is, if you don't have an alternative hypothesis, that's fine. I respect that. But you can't just say that the overwhelming consensus that it is a fusion is innately wrong because of reasons. Well, what reasons is that? Why is that wrong? I'm kind of confused about why you suggest that the evidence is supporting the fact it's a fusion is inherently wrong.
because it's a leap of faith. It's putting an opinion on what's something that is observed. That's just in a conjectural stage. So you observe and you say, it looks like. Now we have X, Y, and Z. Now we have majority that also says it looks like X, Y, and Z. So therefore, the truth is it's a fusion, because our paradigm is that we evolved through macroevolution from common ancestor to Homo sapiens. So therefore it fits. So therefore it's true. No. That's not science.
The raw evidence points to a fusion.
Hang on, remember,
Ignoring common descent, the raw evidence points that way.
Sam's next. Go ahead, Sam.
Well, there are a couple things, and I mean, I think we should switch topics because we're kind of repeating ourselves. But I think that that's a very.
I concur. We should switch topics.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I would bookend is, like, I don't think that. I mean, Troy, you've kind of not outlined what goes on in science either, though. Like, if I'm going to say what goes on in science is that we have an observation and then we have a theory, and that theory makes predictions. It has hypotheses. And then we either substantiate those hypotheses or we fail to substantiate those hypotheses. We're dealing with an instance where obviously there's some disagreement, where some of the people, most of the people here think that we've substantiated the hypothesis, and you don't think we have. But, the thing is you never fully prove a hypothesis. You just try to develop the most consistent hypotheses with the set of observations. And because science the best thing that science does is just predict observations. And so it's not actually disingenuous. If you look at the way that they have dialogues in the literature, it's about which hypothesis is better explaining the evidence, which one does a better job. So it's actually not, and this is one of my main criticisms of the creationism movement, is the fact that you don't merit, the merit of a model stands on its ability to explain the evidence, not on hand-waving skepticism against it.
Well, to that notion, sometimes the prevailing notion is so strong that you have to start with chipping away at the foundation of what is built to the other model that's incongruous to your working model. So it's a fair use of science to say, hey, someone is using carbon dating. Let's talk about that, and let's find out whether carbon dating is actually a plausible means for dating something. Is it an accurate science? And that's a fair measure. So I understand what you're saying, but I also see the wisdom in you can't just present an idea. You also have to work showing the other person why their idea is flawed.
Well, I don't disagree with that. Like, that's actually something, like, you do present hypotheses, you juxtapose them, right? You compare them side by side. I'm not going to argue that, because people do that in the literature all the time, and I don't have a problem with it. The problem that I have, though, is that you're not doing that in good faith, right? You're just dismissing and saying, I'm going to go to the foundation, right? We can talk about the foundations of evolutionary biology, but that's a diversionary tactic. You do still have to meet your burden of proof. It's not just tearing other people down, right? There's no department of tearing down the claims of others, right?
Well,
that's not a department that exists.
But Sam, I'm still wondering what the juxtaposition is. We have an overwhelming majority that say, okay, looking at this, it's a fusion. We have Troy saying, no, it's a fission or something else. Where are we supposed to look at it and go, okay?
Well, that was my point, right? Is that he's not providing that, but I think
I get that, Sam.
What's Steve? Do you have another topic that we could go to?
No, actually, I really like to stick with this one because I don't think anything's been resolved.
Yeah.
I mean, the overwhelming consensus is that anybody who looks at this.
I'm gonna leave, honestly, if we're gonna continue to talk about this, because we're at this point. I have to actually side with Troy. We're kind of ear beating him. We're not getting anywhere productive.
Well, I don't have to be productive. I mean,
can we just end
this
the
was
topic
the topic
on
that
what I'm presenting here? Is
Sure.
that possible?
Sure.
So Troy, this is a molecular cytogenetic journal, which literally on the 9th of this, so 2 months ago, we were speaking about advances in scientific research. Well, that's exactly what this paper is talking about, because we have like, for example, this paper was in 2012. This the one called The Evolution of African Great Ape, and in regards to human chromosome 2, and this one was back in 1991. So they finally were able to actually put a date to it, and that is, so the results are the next generation sequencing and molecular clock analysis estimated that this fusion arose prior to our last common ancestor with Neanderthal and Denisovan hominins between 0.74 and 4.5. So, and they speak about, they give a hypothesis, they conclude the study. Would you say that this is, again, just pure guesswork, or there's legitimate, because look, like, they actually go through the science quite in depth, and this is a paper just 2 months ago. Would you say that this is just nothing but guesswork, especially this one, in regards to figure 2 over here?
Yeah, so to address that, there's a lot of science involved, but you would have to agree with me that there's a lot of conjecture, a lot of assertions, such as when an alleged fusion occurred, and dates associated with that. There's no way of observing that or testing that. That's merely an assertion. Would you agree?
Well, it's a reasonable explanation.
Well, no, I think I can actually
wait,
this.
hang on a second. I wouldn't say it's just because what you're saying, it's sort of bordering on guesswork. I'm saying here's a paper done by cytogenetics. So you talked about inheritances in regards to chromosomes, and they have a new generation of sequencing and molecular clock analysis that makes this more robust. This hypothesis of the fusion.
General, you're kind of skirting the point, right? Next generation sequencing, that's a fancy way of saying we did it in a fast way. I could explain that. Not interesting.
No, we're not interested. Let's move on. Let's move on a little bit.
Can I just make one concluding comment?
I was in the middle of a sentence.
Oh, so I thought you finished, Sam.
No, was the sign that I was in talking?
Okay, Sam, get on with it.
But a molecular, so we know we can calculate a molecular clock based upon the probability that a given genetic event occurs, and this is based upon what we observe today at how often these things, and then we can backtrack, use that as a reasonable estimator. So my question to Troy would be: are you skeptical of that? Like, are you skeptical of the idea that we can take the rate at which events happen today and use that to talk about what happened yesterday, or the hypothetical yesterday, thousands of years ago, or whatever?
That's an excellent question. So oftentimes it is wise to look at what we observe today and draw hypotheses based upon that and infer. But you would have to agree with me that there is a inherent leap of faith that the rate at which things are occurring today is the rate at which they've always occurred. That's a leap of faith. So what it does is it discounts any catastrophic effect, any event where things were accelerated. Case in point, tectonic plate movements. We observe today that they're moving about a fingernail growth. So therefore, the hypothesis would be, okay, so let's take that average rate of speed and let's work backwards until the tectonic plates merge at, let's say, the mid-Atlantic ridge, and then we get an estimated age of 220 million years. Well, that's fine, but it is a leap of faith, because we observe that when tectonic plates have friction points where there's stored built-up potential energy, then when there's a release, there's an accelerated kinetic energy, and dependent upon the amount of friction coefficient that the soil is moving upon will determine the rate of speed when it becomes kinetic energy. And there's been several times when tectonic plates have been released that areas have moved 40 feet in a matter of minutes. So I would say I agree with you that looking at what the rate of things today, then we can make inferences and build hypotheses. But I disagree with you to say that it's always been that rate, because then it discounts catastrophic events.
All right, we're gonna move on a little bit. I
Can I
really
just
don't
comment
think.
on some of the things you just
No,
said
no, you
about the
can't. No,
geology?
no, stop. You can't. No, I don't think anybody's really addressed Tompkins' claims specifically. I don't think anybody's rebutted the fact that Tompkins' claims is erroneous. No offense, Troy. I don't think you really substantiated what Tompkins was saying. I don't think you substantiated that he claimed that there's a highly expressed gene there, DDX11-2. There's nothing to suggest that it's not a fusion. We're going to move on from that, though, because I think people only want to kind of move on. When we talk about radiometrics, people kind of had a question. One of the things when it comes to radiometric dating is that the age of the Earth, and multiple different sources, about 12 different sources, all the way from argon, potassium, argon, samarium, rubidium, to lead, suggests that the age of the Earth is 4.54 billion years, plus or minus a few hundred million years. There's no evidence whatsoever that the age of the Earth is less than that based upon any radiometric dating. So my question to a young Earth creationist is, why do you think that radiometric dating is wrong? And if so, what, based upon physics, makes it incorrect?
Sure. I would say that looking at radiometric dating, that we can actually look at the rate of decay today and get an accurate assertion at what that rate would be. And if that rate was constant going backwards in time, then yes, the estimated date would be 4.6 billion years for the Earth. But there is countering evidence to suggest that the notion that the rate of decay has been constant forever may be flawed. And here's one example. One example is Dr. Robert Gentry has found radiometric halos in granite, specifically polonium, and he found them without a heavier parental chain that they would naturally have descended from, suggesting that granite had a seemingly instantaneously cooling rather than a slow cooling over hundreds of millions of years, which is the prevailing accepted notion today. So that would be one instance to suggest that there's possibly where a catastrophic event can accelerate the rate of decay.
No offense. I've actually looked in. I've actually have a 2-hour hangout on Gentry's polonium halos. Actually, this is a field that I'm well familiar with. I've looked at Gentry's claims in depth. Now, here's my question to you, since you brought up Robert Gentry. Gentry had claimed that the polonium halos were independent of uranium-235 or 238 precursors. That he suggested that polonium-210, 214, and 218 had experienced in granite halos without any kind of parent isotopes. Now, here's the problem I have with that. When you look at the uranium decay chain, you're actually going to find that radium-222 is water soluble and actually will disperse within a rock and actually show that within 3 days, the radium-222 can migrate outside of the the uranium-235 halo to form polonium-214, 210, and 218. Now, his method of discovery was a 2-micron isotopic probe. When you look at the actual halo, the halos were within 2 microns. So Gentry really did not understand that he was not within the margin of error for his ion probe. And 2, he did not realize that the decay products from uranium-235 would eventually go to radium-222, which had the same radio halo as 238, as polonium-214 and 210. So your question when it comes to Gentry and his polonium halos, I will give to you, if Gentry is right, why is it we find polonium 210, 214, and 218 outside of uranium-235 in specific quantities would we expect if the diffusion rates of radium-222 is by the decay product of 225, that would be what we see. In other words, I'm a little bit tipsy here, but the reality is, I'm asking you, we'll see the decay products on the side. We'll see uranium-222 and go, oh, look, here's the decay products, polonium-210, 214, 218. We don't need them to be inside the radius of 218, or excuse me, of uranium-235 or 238, because we know that's a decay product. So where's Gentry's studies that the decay products would be such that it was formed primordially? Because he even admitted it wasn't. He even said you have to say, okay, there's special creation here. God intervened here. That's not what falls within the realm of science. So go ahead.
Well, I like that you mentioned water, because I'm a proponent for a global catastrophic flood event. And my hypothesis for explaining the formation of the Earth was from water and through water. And this is in accord with cosmologists that say water was once very abundant in the universe.
But you recognize, but Troy, you recognize that radium-222 formulated as an isotope well after 4.5 billion years. So if radium-222 was the precursor to the polonium halos, it formed billions of years after the creation of uranium, thus disproving young Earth creationism. Had nothing to do with the flood.
Well, that's an assertion, what you just did.
That's science. No, that's not science. It's physics.
That, but Dr. Robert Gentry has images, and he's addressed all the counter rebuttals against his arguments on his website. So you can go to his website, and every argument that has been seemingly against him to debunk that polonium halos was in a primordial state without a heavier radioactive element that it descended from, he's rebutted.
But he's wrong. The physics shows he's wrong.
Yeah.
My question to you is very simple. Gentry actually said, and he said specifically, there are singularities. There was points of instances where God intervened to make it appear older than it actually was. Now, if you look at the decay chain from uranium-235, you'll see that radium-222 billions of years later formed. And over 3 days of the half-life of that, it can actually dissipate through rocks, forming polonium-214, 218, and 214, explaining the radioactive halos that Gentry saw. A perfectly reasonable explanation. So my explanation, and anybody else's that deals with physics, is that Gentry did not realize that there was a reasonable, philosophical, naturalistic explanation. Now, I'm asking you, what is the reason why we see these halos other than the fact that radium-222 migrated from the decay chain throughout the rock to form those halos?
Well, one of the things you did is you asserted the age at which this occurred. You have no way of proving that. You're basing it on uniformitarian theory that the rate at which we see things today is the rate it's always been. But there was a German lab that did a study of solar flares with uranium, and they found that there was minor fluctuations in the rate of decay with uranium. So it's the hypothesis is that when there's a traumatic event, that the rates of decay fluctuate.
Well, actually, that's actually correct.
I think it's a fine hypothesis to infer that what we observe today is what's always been, but you would have to assume that you would have to agree that that is a leap of faith, that you do not know, or nor could you prove that the rate of decays have always been constant.
Well, actually, Troy, that's actually completely incorrect.
Okay, can I just jump?
I'm gonna throw this over to you real quick because I know you got this, General. But let me explain to you real quick that is completely incorrect, because there are very few things that actually change the rate of decay. One of which is called K capture, which is called electron capture. It has about a 0.2 to 0.8% factor on most and a few isotopes. Okay, the study that was done on the solar flares dealing specifically with the radioactive decay constants was disproven. Okay, the sun has no effect on the radioactive decay constants on the Earth. The only thing that it does is actually what I mentioned before, what's called K capture. That is only between a very small margin, 0.2 to 0.8%. That is not going to affect the rates that we have when it comes to argon, potassium dating. Okay, and especially it does not change the polonium halos that Gentry suggested, because the polonium halos that Gentry suggested are far and away outmatched by the fact that the byproduct by uranium is a very gas that can actually distribute itself in the rock called radion-222. But anyways, Jim, go ahead and address it, because I know we've talked about this before. My voice is going, but Troy, you're actually being very misleading on your claims here. Sorry, my voice is shot. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I mean,
okay.
You have
Troy,
to
go
admit,
ahead.
do you agree that it's a leap of faith that the rate of decays have always been constant? That's something you cannot prove.
No. What can cause a rate of change? What can cause, using physics, a change of rate of decay? What do you know that can change that?
I just asked you a question. I said you have to admit, yes or no, that you have a leap of faith that the rate of decays have always been constant.
No.
There's no way of proving that.
Because we can go back. Sure, we can go back on the fine structure constant, 1.8 billion years. The fine structure constant is a direct relationship to the weak nuclear force, which is the controlling force of weak nuclear decay. That is something we can actually pinpoint that for 1.8 billion years has been constant. So we know radiological decay constants.
That is simply not true, Steve.
That is absolutely true.
That is not true. We've been observing data for 75 years. You can't say that because of what we've been observing for 75 years, therefore X, Y billion years. That is such a leap of faith.
No,
and it's disingenuous for you to not accept that you're believing in a leap of faith, something that you cannot prove in physics.
You can look back in time by looking up. Sorry, Karen.
Yeah, are you familiar with the Oklo nuclear reactor?
What's that?
Are you familiar with the natural Oklo reactor in France?
No.
Okay, this is a natural reactor that actually went critical about 1.8 billion years ago. Okay, 1.8 billion years ago. We can tell, because it's been a self-sustaining nuclear fission reaction, that the decay constant, which actually controls things like the speed of light and other universal constants, that it had gone critical 1.7 billion years ago. That we know for a fact that's how physics works out. We know.
You just made an assertion that we know for a fact.
That's not an assertion.
You do not know for a fact. You're making an assertion, and you just stated that the speed of light is constant.
It is.
We have physicists that are able to accelerate the speed of light 300 times faster than current. What is constant?
No. Actually, I would promise
to a bicycle ride.
I would promise.
So you're making lots of leaps of faith and saying it's fact.
Troy, that's actually incorrect. We have never accelerated. We have never accelerated light 300 times faster than light. What we've done is shown that the wavefront, the front part of the wave, okay, that part can go faster than the speed of light, which is already predicted by general relativity. The phase velocity can go faster than the speed of light. It always has been able to go faster than the speed of light. But you can never break the value of c by having something accelerated that has mass greater than c. But the frontal velocity of that wave, that can go. And we've always known that. There's a huge distinction there. General, go ahead.
Dr. Alan Goods had postulated universal inflation was faster than the speed of light, a Planck time at the Big Bang.
Which it was.
You just contradicted yourself. No. You don't even see it.
Because space-time itself, under Minkowski space, can go faster than c, as long as it does not have a mass attached to it. The isotopic behavior of light is such that if you have a mass relationship, that is the barrier that c prohibits a mass from going faster than c. But if you do not have mass, you're not prohibited by that.
Steve, what you're doing is you just postulated but said it as fact of a reactor that reacted 1.4 billion years ago. But that's a hypothesis. That's not fact, but you're elevating it to fact. You can't do that. That's disingenuous.
No, that's how that's physics.
Okay, can I say something real quick?
Yes, go ahead.
We know that the decay rate has to be constant because radioactive decay, as you know, produces heat. I mean, I believe it produces half of the Earth's heat at its constant rate. Now we know friction occurs even at the atomic level. So say if you rub your hands together, the faster you rub your hands together, the more heat is going to be produced. So the faster
Yes.
an ice the more heat it produces. Basically you're increasing the atomic friction. So if you're increasing it to such a level that you want to condense, say, I believe the zircons that Jack Siller dated at 4.4 billion years. What you need to do to get that to fit in a 6,000 year timeline is you would need to increase that to, I believe, well over 700,000 times the current rate, and that would mean you need to produce the amount of heat you would produce. It's absurd. It would
Right.
completely destroy the crust.
Right.
So we know it couldn't. So we know it couldn't have been that fast.
Let Troy address that because that's a
the
great question,
opposite-
Isaiah. So Isaiah, the question is at hand. In order to compensate for the deep time of radiological decay, the amount of energy in ergs we released would actually melt the crust. How do you respond?
Oh, it's very simple. So the hypothesis is that the Earth was made from water and through water. We can discern that all celestial bodies were made in a similar fashion. Cosmologists say that the universe was once loaded with water. So during the time of the Big Bang and big expansion of the universe, there was vast amounts of heat. When you look at the vast size of the universe, that it's 100 billion light years across, and you say, how do you explain a universe that's 100 billion light years across in only 16 billion years? Well, the answer would be utilizing Dr. Alan Guth's postulate that at the time of the Big Bang, the universe expanded faster than the speed of light, but it did so in a Planck time. So all you do is you ask a creationist, how do you explain a
that's
universe
not
that's
true.
100 billion light years across in 6,000 years? And the duration of the universal inflation, instead of being a Planck time, it would be such as like ours. And that would explain a young universe that's 100 billion light years across.
Well, the problem with
Okay,
that,
can I
though, is
explain what
that
that
makes
means?
no sense.
Is it
Because-
possible that I can even address
We got
this?
an echo here.
Yeah, the echo's back.
Yeah, echo's back. The problem with that is
Yeah,
very,
could
very,
I-
very. Well, yeah, I'm going to turn over to you in a second. The problem with that is huge. When we say something is 13.7 billion light years away, mathematically and physically, that means that literally it took light 13.7 billion years to get here. That is how the
That's an
quantitative
assumption.
analysis.
That's an assertion,
no,
Steve.
that's not
You
assertion.
can't
That's
prove
quantitative
that.
analysis. That's what it means. That's quantitative analysis.
No, you're confusing distance with time. A light year is a measurement of distance. It is
Right.
not a measurement
And
of
if you
time.
do the quantitative
You should know
analysis,
that. That's very simple physics.
But if you do the quantitative analysis, something that's 13.7 billion light years away, divided by how long it takes to get here, those units cancel out. Meaning that
No,
it is 13 billion.
You're assuming that.
That's
Dr. Alan Guth postulated that
That's
the universe
physics.
expanded
That's basic
faster than the
physics.
speed of light at the time of the Big Bang. So
Steve,
you
don't forget.
got it
Can
backwards.
I-
You're
really-
using
While that object was on its way
wrong.
to us, the universe was expanding. So
Right,
it's
there's a
actually
universe
further
inflation.
away. So,
Yes,
so
I agree.
because we can
Yes.
see things
Okay.
13.7 billion light, doesn't mean to say
They're
that's where
further
it is
away.
now.
Yes, yeah.
That's
That's
what-
funny. That's the funniest thing. That Rumpus is actually right. The objects we observe at the observable end of the universe, 13.7 years away, are actually further away, according to the fact that space-time is expanding.
Well, Troy
But
actually
the
made this
minimum-
point because he was saying it was 100 billion light years across. I think it is actually. I think
Well,
the
it's
estimate for the
92.
size of the universe is about 96 or something, 97
90, I think it's
billion
92.
light years. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Right.
But the minimum itself is actually 168,000 light years away, because that is the actual distance from us to supernova 1987A.
Yeah.
Okay, but if you extrapolate further, by the edgeable universe, 13.7 units away, means that light took 13.7 billion years to get here. Period.
That, Steve, again, that is using science incorrectly, because what you're doing is
How?
you're using a distance measurement and switching it over to a time measurement. You're not counting the fact that at the time of the expansion, the universe expanded A, faster than the speed of light, and B, physicists today can accelerate and decelerate the speed of light.
This
Yeah,
is
but
just
that's near Planck. No, I'm actually going to agree with him a little bit here. But that's near Planck's time.
Man in his image.
Right.
You guys are missing
Troy,
the point. You guys are missing the point. Listen closely. Listen closely. Hold on. If mankind can alter the speed of light, then so too can God, who made man in his image. What you're doing is you're saying,
how has man done that yet?
That's error. It's erroneous.
Since mankind
It's just wrong.
Can
Guys,
alter the speed of light, but God cannot.
We can't do it.
Rumpus, hang on. Rumpus. Troy, how has mankind altered the speed of light? Because if this has ever happened, I'd like to know. And I keep up on this.
Yeah, it's been done. We have decelerated the speed of light.
That's not alternating. Whoa. That's not alternating speed.
And we've accelerated the speed of light 300 times.
No, we have not.
Faster than its current speed.
No,
you're absolutely wrong on this.
Google search away.
Do you know what the front
Steve,
velocity of a wave function is?
I'm just, you know what, Steve?
Okay,
you're going to continue talking to me. This is not a dialogue. I mean,
Please.
all I hear is when I'm speaking is I see you talking and I hear you talking. So this is not working for me.
Okay, can I? Okay, Troy, can we? I want to. I want to spend 5 minutes responding to literally everything I've just heard. Okay. First and foremost, if you get any physics textbook, I teach differential calculus, I teach multivariate calculus, and also elementary physics at university. I'm a student myself, and I'm about to go into masters. Now, the first chapter in any good physics textbook teaches you about unit conversions. So, for example, when you said this is an elementary error actually on your part. Like the first thing I want to point out that when you speak about distances and therefore that doesn't equate into time. Well, actually, the unit conversions cancel out the distances, and then you're left with time. So you have a certain distance.
If time has always been constant, which you cannot prove it has, and I have a
No.
If you do a Google
light has always been constant.
that the speed of light can be decelerated and accelerated.
Okay, let me just. I'm not gonna. Let's try and have a more cordial discussion. So, unit conversions are very important. Time is not constant, and the speed of light is indeed constant. When I say time is not constant, I'm referring to B theory of time, which, by the way, doesn't actually. In fact, it destroys the Young's position. Now, let's first start with the claim. Let me just make sure I'm sharing the right thing here. Okay, let me just go back to the halos a second. Let me just share the halo one for you. Where's the PDF? Okay, sharing that. All right. Now this is a paper published in 1982. Let me just make sure I'm getting that correct. Sorry, 1989, where actually a couple of geologists actually questioned Gentry's position on the crystal halos. So they hypothesize a radiation-induced color halo in quartz based on a totally different phenomenon that's taking place. Now here's the interesting thing about what Gentry did not tell you. And that is, polonium-218 halos actually occur very rarely. but guess what? You actually have halos from uranium-238 and thorium-232. And these halos require many orders of millions of years. You're talking at least 100 million years, because both have radiometric half-lives in the billions of years. Now, secondly, so that's point number one, in the sense that you have very rare halos in regards to what Gentry was proposing, and yet at the same time you have halos that require at least 100 million years. Now your next point will be, well, okay, the radiometric decay rates change. So this is a paper that was done in 2014, where the hypothesis was that, let me just make sure I'm sharing the, one second. Okay, here it is. Here's the blue line. As you can see here, the blue line represents the distance between the sun and the earth, how it varies over time. And here's the dates given, 2009. And this study was done where they were measuring this for 4 years.
You're not presenting.
The variance.
Sorry,
so,
General. You're not presenting, General.
So there's no picture coming up?
No.
You should be presenting.
Just your avatar. Or at least to me, anyway.
I see.
Okay, let me share it again. One second.
Sorry. Okay, perhaps so.
I'll present you again.
Okay, can you see it now?
No, I had it before. Now I can see it.
Okay, perhaps it's just me. Perhaps it's just me. I can't see it. But okay, Karen.
Yeah, you got a British City connection.
So, so here's the variations of Earth around the sun. Here you're seeing now. Okay, so here distance sun r squared. Or here's the distances. Standardized activity of how the the solar flares supposedly disrupt the. In this case, they were measuring chlorine. Chlorine. So, for example, here's the paper. Decay rates of radioactive substances are constant. If I go down to scientists have now carried out new measurements that have now established their results. For 3 years, they checked the activity of samples of chlorine in, chlorine-36 in order to detect possible seasonal dependencies. And then they're saying the measurements results of PDB clearly show fewer variations that do not indicate any seasonal dependence or influence of solar neutrinos. So neutrinos don't cause any form of change in the decay rates. Now this is confirmed. It's a very there's no variation. There's no acceleration, deceleration. It's quite consistent. Now,
Hi, General, hang on. Long story short, Troy, what he's saying is that the evidence shows that decay rates are not changed.
Now,
Great.
now
Let's see how
I want to
the decay
just
rates react to supernovas.
Can you repeat that, please?
actually, thank you for mentioning that because I wanted to say this to Paul. So here's a lecture I actually made on the supernova relationship. So now, for example, what I was going to do is I was going to go to rubidium, strontium, the isochron chart, but since you brought this up, I'll mention this. So Tycho Brahe, he recorded a bright supernova in 1572. So here's Tycho's supernova here, and now this is a this photo here on the left. This is his book describing the supernova, and here's the interesting thing. The luminosity. So here's V, your luminosity magnitude in this chart here. Let me just zoom in for you. And
you misunderstood me. I'm not referencing a supernova that is in the celestial realm in our modern era. I'm talking about the catastrophic events when the universe was expanding violently, where we can look at the background radiation of the microwaves, micro radiation in the cosmic background.
I'll get to that in a second, because you're dealing with scalar spectral index issues, which again refutes what you just said. So here are supernovas. So this pentagon that this pentagon shape here is the supernova 1572, which is Tycho Brahe supernova. Then there were these other two supernovas, which is the 1991 and the 1996 supernova. Now here's the interesting thing: the decay rates of Ni56 and CO56 of the supernovas we see in we see in 91 and 96. Here's the logarithmic scale regards to the luminosity. Notice that it's actually consistent with Tycho Brahe's measurements, because you see these supernovas last so many months, and the brightness changes over a period of time. That brightness constitutes a direct relationship to the radiometric decay rates of these elements that come about in the supernova. And now, if the change took place in a 6,000-year-old context, this would not fit. In fact, are you familiar with John Hartnett, the Young Earth creationist?
No, but that's an assertion that it won't fit. You have no way of understanding or knowing the catastrophic events of bringing about all matter through the violence of colliding energy together near the speed of light.
No.
General, time out. General. I don't think he's actually. I think we're going beyond the scope of the discussion here.
No, what I want to show.
I understand what you're saying. I don't think he does. I don't think he has a background in
500 years. I just want to say this. Within the last 500 years, there's been no change. In fact, and this is the beauty of this particular study that I presented in this lecture. All we're relying on is someone's observation. Tycho Brahe had no idea about radiometric decay rates. He was just saying, look, this supernova is, at this month it was this bright, at this month it was this bright, and well, let's see if his calculations and his observations are consistent with our more accurate observations and calculations. And guess what? They fit. Now, General,
I'm gonna cut you off because you're over. General, I think you're kind of overloading him a little bit. Troy, I want.
Steve, I understand what he's saying, but thanks for the dig. I get it. But what he's missing and what you're missing is that a supernova that's occurring now is not going to be responsible for accelerating decay rates that when the supernova is so far away. Well, I'm talking about at the creation event and the expansion event. So,
all right, explain to me. Explain to me what General. Hang on. What would actually change the decay rates? You've suggested that a supernova could. What is the mechanism by which a supernova could change decay rates?
Well, that's just it. So Dr. Robert Gentry has postulated the halos, and he's suggesting that catastrophic events, he's the expert in the field in this realm.
And it's wrong.
In your opinion, and you're not
it's actually,
in his field of expertise.
Well, actually, no. My field is nuclear engineering. Okay, so I do have a background in this.
That's not his expertise.
Well,
so he's doing an ion mass spectrometer. He's in the field and he's studying this stuff.
But the problem is, what Gentry's claim is that Troy, you are accepting Troy's claim without actually looking at his claim. His claim was
that's an assertion again. You're building assertion upon assertion, Steve.
Okay, do you know what Gentry's claim is?
Upon assumption, and that's just a debater's tactic.
What is Gentry's claim?
I have studied his.
Sure. What is Gentry's claim then, Troy? What is Gentry trying to claim to demonstrate a young Earth? Use his halos to demonstrate a young Earth. What is he asserting? Is saying, okay, because of this, there's a young Earth. What is his claim?
Dr. Robert Gentry is asserting that there wasn't a natural process of decay rates going from uranium to more stable elements and then eventually getting to lead. He's saying that he found polonium halos in their primordial states without a heavier chain that it descended from.
But science has shown that he's wrong. We've actually showed that in the decay chain, there's actually radium-222, which can diffuse through the rock, producing those polonium halos. How do you deny that? You would not need the primordial uranium-235 chain, which is 4.5 billion years. You only would need the fact that that radium-222 at some point occurred that diffused through the rock, and that produced the polonium-210, 214, 218. That is why Gentry was proved wrong.
What Dr. Robert Gentry was saying is there's no signature of the heavier chain. There's no halo signatures from uranium down to polonium. And what he's saying is because the polonium halos are captured in the granite rock, because it's so fleeting, it's representative that the granite cooled instantly. And I would postulate this, that on the second day of creation, when God expanded the universe and he said, let there be an expanse, so you have a tightly compacted universe on the second day of creation. God brings about all the matter in the universe as a result of, we can use the CERN Large Hadron Collider as an example of hypothesis on how God brought about converting the energy to matter. That's fine. But so we had a tightly compact universe. And this tightly compact universe is what caused the granite to be liquefied and formed, because it was under a high, immense amount of pressure, which generated the heat by increasing the friction. And so on the second day of creation, when God expanded the universe, and this would also be by natural processes, by violent measures, and that's why we see the background radiation. But this sudden reduction of pressure would cause the massive reduction in temperature and would instantaneously freeze the granite, the bedrock of the continents, which is why it captured the polonium halos. Because as Dr. Robert Gentry is explaining it, polonium halos are fleeting. They're not going to last for a long time. So if you wanted to show someone bubbles from an Alka-Seltzer bubbling in water, and you wanted to show them 10,000 years in the future what was bubbling, you would have to instantaneously freeze the water. And that's what Dr. Robert Gentry's point is that because the granite captured the polonium halos, because it captured the halos, it suggests that the granite cooled instantly rather than a slow cool over hundreds of millions of years.
All right, Troy, with all due respect, what you just said is complete nonsense. I mean, with all due respect, that is complete, utterly nonsense.
Yeah, it doesn't, because
I mean, I'm going to address this first. I'm going to turn over to you, General.
You can't just say it's complete.
I want to explain to you why.
There's strong evidence to suggest that.
No, there's not.
It's a plausible hypothesis.
I'm explaining.
Just discount it, Troy. Complete nonsense.
Troy, I'm explaining to you why it's nonsense. I'm going to address it. Let me address it.
He's trying to address it.
Yeah. The half-life of uranium-235 is close to about 4.5 billion years. In that decay chain,
how long have you been measuring that, Steve?
Okay, we'll address the decay constants in a second. But in the decay chain,
you have to agree that that's a leap of faith. At some point, you have.
I would wish you would stop interrupting me to let me explain to you what the physics is first.
I don't need you to explain the physics.
Well, I think you kind of do.
No.
I don't think you do.
No.
The polonium halos don't work for a very simple fact.
Steve, I see where this is going. This is too adversarial.
Not adversarial. No
discussion.
Troy, I know this isn't a discussion. I want to explain to you why it doesn't work.
And you're basing assumptions upon assumptions.
No,
and
Troy, this is not assumptions.
It's a theory. You're saying it's something that is a hypothesis, and you're stating it as fact.
Troy, will you let me speak for a minute?
Two leaps of faith. Okay. You're saying
Troy, will you let me speak for a minute?
And you're stating it as fact.
Troy, will you let me speak?
You won't come to admit that you're not using science properly.
Do you agree?
You're using a debater's tactic. And
Troy,
that's not.
do you
that's
agree?
Not, something I
This
want
is
to
not
be a part
debater's
of.
tactics. This is science. Do you
No.
agree?
What you're doing is
Okay,
you're
I'm
saying
Initially, I was making
you're
a point.
basing a
Rubbish, stop.
hypothesis, and then what you're doing is you're
Troy,
just extrapolating it out and saying it's fact. You
Okay.
weren't measuring this 4.6 billion years ago. And when I presented a plausible hypothesis, you just absolutely just said that's rubbish, and that's a debater's tactic.
No, I'm
And,
explaining to you why it's
I was
rubbish.
cut off on every measure.
Troy,
and
Troy, time out. You have plenty
no,
of time to speak.
I'm up to here. Up to here. So,
Troy,
you're saying that you found counterpoints to Dr. Robert Gentry's points.
Can I address them?
You can go on his website, and he has rebuttals to the rebuttals.
And I can address them as well.
I'm sure you can.
Okay, can we allow me to?
No amount of information that is going to be presented to you to change your mind. Your mind is 100%.
Troy, will you let me explain it?
So no matter what someone says, they're wrong if their notion is against yours.
Well, no, Troy. I want people to be explain things. I want an adversarial. I'm only going to mute you because I'm running feedback. Sorry, I just have it in my ear. So everybody gets muted because I'm muting. Why is I'm getting echo still?
Why, Steve? Will you stop muting me? I'm not.
Well, I don't know who's getting. I'm muting everybody because I'm getting an echo. Now, Troy.
Oh, I just unmuted myself. So it's 8:30 my time, and we've started this at 6. We've had 2.5 hours of circling around. So this concludes the call for me. I appreciate
but Troy, I'd like to address this real quick. I really would. Because this is actually something that I've actually studied.
What you're going to do is you're going to build assertion upon assertion.
No, I'm not. No, Troy, stop. I honestly, I swear to you. Please, Troy. Let me explain this. I'm not building.
You make assertion upon assertion.
Troy, I'm not building. I'm not building any assertion.
Why don't you contact Dr. Robert Gentry?
I have.
Expert in this field.
I have. And Dr. Safadi and many other experts. So I want to mute you for a second because I'm getting feedback in my ears. Nothing against you. Please let me speak for a second, Troy. We've actually addressed many experts in these fields. Okay, and I want to very, very plainly explain this to you. This is not hyperbole. And he left. So this is, what can you do when you run into these situations where these people don't want to understand the fact they're fundamentally wrong when it comes to physics? So the fact that he left doesn't matter. I'm going to explain to you guys the physics. In the decay chain for uranium-235, which is the polonium halo that Gentry's talking about, okay? I did research on because I did a presentation on this. Gentry hypothesized that because you had somewhere else in the granite, you had polonium-238, 214, 210, 218, 18 halos without the decay parent of uranium-238, that it must have been formed primordially. Okay? The problem with that is that because you have uranium-238 halo, the radium-222 will diffuse from that and go outside of that halo, inside the rock, within a period of 3 days. That decay chain will now decay into polonium-210, 214, and 218 without the inherent parent isotope around it. His microscopy was at a resolution of 2 microns. If you look at the halo of 214 to RN2222, you'll find that they're almost identical. He did not have the resolution to distinguish between the two. That was a fundamental problem with his ion probe. I'm trying to explain this to freaking Troy. Troy doesn't want to hear this because he's so assertive that Gentry is right. Well, I'm sorry. Gentry is wrong. Period.
Well, his claim presumably was that the heavier elements, the parent elements, weren't around. I think that's what the point. It's very difficult to work out what he's saying sometimes. I think he was claiming that the polonium had primordial because there were no other parent products, radioactive products around. I think that was his point.
Yeah, and in fact, I was going to go down the route, the rubidium strontium isochron chart to show
would
that.
have been rubidium strontium.
No, I was gonna show with this that you can the whole parent daughter claim.
Oh, sure you can. No, of course you can. Yes, of course.
Thoroughly refuted with this. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the rubidium strontium.
What I wanted to. Yeah. So sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
I said the rubidium strontium ratio doesn't affect the fact that the resolution for polonium 218, 210, and 214 is very similar to that of radium-222. And so when Gentry was saying that this must have formed primordial, he didn't even factor the decay chain. He didn't even bother to say, oh, this is what it is. And when he did get pointed out, he said, oh, it's called a singularity. He said this is a one-time event that God did to overcome the fact that science had just proved that he was wrong.
And what I wanted to do was show one of Gentry's papers. The title is Fossil Alpha Recoil Analysis of Certain Variant Radioactive Halos. And he says that you need 500 million alpha particles to be emitted by the central inclusion in order for this, for the halo.
Well, that's for helium diffusion rates.
Then,
now you're talking about helium diffusion rates on that.
No.
Yes, you are.
No, the radioactive halo. No, 500 million alpha particles to be emitted.
Yes, and that was Humphrey's.
Said.
Well, I don't remember Gentry saying that, but Humphrey dealt with rates when it came to helium diffusion. And helium fusion, which was obviously helium isotopes.
No. Wait. This is where I was going with this, because, and I'll get the paper up. Gentry says you need this many alpha particles. Now, a typical inclusion, when, like, for example, in say 1 micron in diameter, you need at least 76 million years for uranium-238, and so I think it's 76 million years for uranium-238, and I think it's
4.5 billion years. Like that.
I think it's 250 or so million years for thorium-232 for 1 micron in diameter halo to appear. Now, this is going to be my question to him. You need that much time, and not to mention, the uranium and thorium halos are very frequent.
Yes.
Compared to these particular halos.
Yes.
So by default, you're at minimum, you're 76 million years at least for uranium-238.
If you look at that single isotope,
but then he goes and rage quits, and I can't ask him the question.
Yeah, you're right. Here's the problem. Yes, I've been drinking a little bit, but my science is correct. I'm sorry. This is something that I actually looked into very heavily. Say what you want about me, but I looked into fucking Gentry's claims extensively, and I probably know more about Gentry's claim than anybody in this room right now. When Gentry had claimed that in order to have these polonium halos, you must have a cooling off period instantaneously, he neglected to fucking realize that radium-222 was a decay product of uranium-235 in the decay chain. And that if you actually look at the math and you actually say, here's the primordial, original, ancestral parent isotope, this is what we have now, guess what? It perfectly matches. You can actually look through the decay chain. And you can say, this is exactly where we are according to the decay chain. At some point, radium-222 dissipated within the rock, forming polonium-218, 214, 218, or 210 halos elsewhere without that parent isotope. You can see it. Now, I'm sorry he left, but this is bullshit that he was saying. It was completely nonsense.
Yeah, I'll just share the. So here's Gentry's paper, which I'll give it to you, Steve. Well, I don't know. Have you read this paper? This particular one, Fossil Alpha Recoil Analysis? Because you have?
Show me.
Do you see it?
No, yeah, I don't think I've read this one. No, I haven't read this one, no.
Okay, because in this paper, I'm just trying to look for...
but it's obviously dealing with polonium 210, 214, and 18. Which is the which is funny that... But how did... My question would have been very simple. How did Gentry determine the halo between radium-222 and polonium when they are exactly almost identical, when he only had a 2 micron range in his ion probe? That's what I want to know. He couldn't do it.
Here it is. So he then says here, I have assumed that the solution ceased to flow when polonium halos formed, and the total number of polonium atoms, 500 million, necessary, so 5 times 10 to the 8, necessary to form a well-developed polonium-218 halo. This last value I determined by observing the degree of coloration in uranium. Now notice, degree of coloration in uranium halos as a function of the number of fission tracks emanating from the halo nucleus, the total number of alpha particles required for production of a halo being computed as 8 times the number of fission tracks times the ratio of the half-life for spontaneous fission for alpha decay of 238 uranium-238. Now, okay, Gentry, 500 million. Guess what? That you need a minimum of, if you're talking about 1 micron, you need a minimum of 76 million years for the uranium halos to appear, at least. And I think it's 250 million for thorium.
Well, here's the thing. See, the problem with Gentry had,
and
okay,
500 is rare.
well,
500 million is rare as well.
Well, there is a discoloration in the halos.
Sorry.
Okay, Gentry was right. There is a discoloration in the halos. Okay, I don't remember the exact technical name. It's chromoaberration or something. But there's a name that was given to the polonium halo discoloration. The problem that he ran into is when they tried to recreate that discoloration using actual tested hypothesis and experiments using known radiological controls, nothing could account for that. The only way you can have that kind of discoloration was over a very vast amount of time. An instantaneous disintegrations from a radioactive isotope would not produce that discoloration. It would not be from some primordial granite that all of a sudden was produced instantaneously as Gentry's hypothesized because of his Young's creationist model. That is not how this discoloration would work. The discoloration, the chromo anomalies that he had would only be accountable for over a long period of time with variable gamma rays being produced from these, or alpha, sorry, it was actually alpha particles. Yeah, alpha particles from the disintegration of the nuclei. So when you have these nuclei disintegrating, the alpha particles go out. They interact with the material around them with a very specific formula. And he neglected to use that formula properly. That was the problem that he had. He did not want to say, this is what we know for a standard rate in an SDP of what the ionization would be for alpha particle ionization. He didn't utilize that. He just randomly came up with his own values. And when they confronted Gentry on it and said, how'd you come up with these values? He said, I made it to fit my model. And that model was created by God.
All right,
that is outside the realm. That is outside the realm of mythological naturalism. He was special pleading towards a creationist position, even though the science didn't even indicate that. Does that make sense?
Now, what do you think of? Yeah, perfect. Now, what do you think about this argument I was making? I don't see how this was not. I don't see how this is not relevant to showcasing the constancy of the radiometric decay rates by using the luminosity of the supernovas.
Well, I think this was actually something. Wasn't this something that they used to? They were trying to show that certain methods by the sun, certain radiometric methods by the sun, would actually change the decay rates. And then when they looked at the nickel and the cobalt, they said the fact that the sun does not change the decay rates on the Earth. Correct?
Yeah, and that's what I was presenting with the chlorine article I was presenting. You saw the variations over between 2009 and 2013. But what I wanted to do here was actually show recent supernova, so 91 supernova, 96 supernova, compare it to the 1572 supernova, and see the remarkable consistency of the luminosity. So here's Tycho Brahe's luminosity. So there's a little bit of an error bar there. In relation to the periodical time of our most current supernova, and how it actually matches, because when you take nickel and cobalt and you do the decay rates of them, the luminosity matches exactly with Tycho Brahe. And it's not just Tycho Brahe. I was going to go on and say that Johannes Kepler, his supernova in 1603, matches the cobalt to iron. You know, so you have nickel to cobalt, and then so that's roughly 6 days, and then from cobalt to iron, it's 77 days. And here's another logarithmic flux of the, again, notice perfect consistency. And those guys, they didn't have, you know.
Why is the iron 56 vice 50, by the way?
Sorry?
Because most other processes stop at iron 56 after iron 50, not the iron 56.
No, iron 56.
No, 50 is the upper limit on most stars.
According, no. 1 second. Kepler. Maybe I did a typo then.
Yeah, most stars usually stop around 50, 52,
observing
and 53.
supernovae. Yeah, this is where I got the. Let's see.
Because after that, obviously, it's not visible. Because if you look at the May-West curve, what's called the field fission yield curve, you'll find that iron is dead middle in the middle. That it's way low. You cannot get any kind of extrapolation of energy from the fission or fusion from iron. But I thought iron 50. I thought iron 51 too.
It's from cobalt to iron.
Oh, because the decay process of cobalt to
iron. It takes 77 days. Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering. In fact, I was wondering what you're getting at. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now then,
but I'm sorry he left. I mean,
Isaiah.
I really wish he would have addressed our concerns, because when we started talking about Gentry's claims, I don't think he had a clue what the fuck he was talking about.
Because then you see, this is so on this slide, Isaiah asked the question, wouldn't the Earth melt? I mean, you know, because what would have been really perfect would be to ask him, explain to us E equals mc squared. If C is, you know, 1,000,000 times faster, then you're talking about, in this case, the current decay rates give off 40 trillion watts. You know, uranium-238 is generating 40 trillion watts of energy in the Earth's crust.
That's actually the current value right now. That's going on right now.
Yeah,
40 trillion
so
watts.
if it was going 1,000,000 times faster in the past,
it would melt the crust.
What? Planet Earth is like some sun or something like.
It would literally melt the crust. But we didn't get into the technical stuff because he left. I don't understand why he left when maybe it wasn't coherent, but I mean the fact is when he was talking about Gentry's claims, all I pointed out that he was incorrect, and I would explain to him why Gentry is wrong. It doesn't take a degree in physics to know why Gentry is wrong. It just takes a very simple understanding of the decay chain. The decay chain showed that Gentry did not take into account that there are other isotopes which could permeate the rock and not show the parent decay isotope. That was it. That was it. Very simple. That you can have polonium 210, 214, 18 way over here. You can have the ancestral 2838 or 235 way over here because you have a gas diffusion in between them. Simple as that. And then he was pointing out that his ion probe had not the resolution to even determine the halo between polonium 210 or 214 and radium 222. He just said God did it. That was really his reasoning. Gentry said God did it. That's not science. So I'm sorry he left, guys, but I was not letting him get away with just the same old young earth creationist nonsense. I really hope that he actually addressed the concerns. And I may not know about genetics, but I know a little bit about radiometric decay, and he didn't have a clue. I mean,
anyway,
Rumpus, do you agree? Or General, I mean, do you think that he understood?
I don't know. I think we got at least we got headway with Paul, but I honestly don't think Okay, well,
Be
I don't know.
honest.
I honestly don't think that was a fruitful discussion.
No, it wasn't.
We only now we're demonstrating any form of evidence. Like,
Well, honestly, it didn't help.
otherwise it would
It
just
didn't
be
help. Yeah, it didn't help when Sam was saying, "Well, we should talk about other things." I wanted to stick on HE2. Sam wanted to move on. I don't think he was very productive in that conversation. But then once we went to isotopes, it was clear that he was just parodying the party line for Gentry, and I wanted to have a more technical thing. I cannot talk about genetics as Sam or Fiona could, but my God, I do know a little bit about fucking radioactivity, and I did research Gentry's claim extensively, and I found that he was without merit. And I know you know that.
Anyway.
I know Rumpus knows that, but how am I supposed to relate it to him? You guys know I'm not wrong. Even George, you're a physicist too, a mathematician. You know I'm not wrong when it comes to Gentry's claims. Gentry was wrong, or at the very, very least, he was inconsistent and he did not demonstrate his claims that required a primordial solidification of isotopes prior to any kind of normal decay chain. He didn't demonstrate that at all.
But yeah, and then Troy, to be honest, as well, whenever he spoke about physics terminology, I mean, whatever he was saying, it's kind of like, remember when I was reading the first page on gravity? I was just like, what are you saying? Are you talking like how, in this case, like how true empiricism talks, where he gives off scientific vocabulary, but the positioning of the words, he thinks that, okay, I'm going to say these string of words and make a coherent case, but actually it's incoherent what he's saying.
Well, let me ask
there
you,
is no
what do we do with this
because
point?
he doesn't know the concept.
Right. What do we do when it comes to these people that come on the channel that want to talk about this stuff in depth? What are we supposed to do? I give people the benefit of the doubt that they're going to have some kind of knowledge on these topics, and then when they don't, it's very disconcerting.
I will be honest though, Steve, that you, instead of me going for the juggler, you were going for the juggler this time.
Well, I mean, I admit, it's Veterans Day. I'm not going to lie. I've had a few beers. I'm slurring my speech. But the physics is not incorrect. Yeah. There's nothing that I've said incorrect when it comes to the physics. And I know that you and
yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yes, I may be struggling when it comes to slurring my speech because it's Veterans Day. But that doesn't negate the fact that I'm not wrong or not right when it comes to polonium halos.
That's not. It's just that he didn't like the fact that we could instantly respond back and say, look, this is, and in fact, notice we were actually giving evidences. He was just sitting there, turning his head to some other screen, I don't know, looking at, I don't know what. But he wasn't actually demonstrating any form of model. So we were prepared to have a discussion. Like, you know me, I'm sharing my screen and all that. He's just making assertions of, oh, that's just a hypothesis.
Well, that's why did I not try to stop him a few times and say, look, no, this is not a hypothesis. Let me explain to you why this is actually the case. But he didn't want to listen. He's like, you're just making a hypothesis. This is not a hypothesis. I mean, the hypothesis is something where somebody says, I have a conjecture that I can explain using evidence and experimental results. Okay.
For example, the speed of light. Like, he didn't even know that a light pulse is different to the speed of light. It's just, anyway.
Well, yeah, the wavefront. Okay, the wavefront of a pulse of light can travel much faster than c.
Yeah, yeah, but the leading edge of that pulse,
but that doesn't violate special relativity.
Exactly, because the leading edge is in line.
It's apparent velocity.
Hey, Steve.
Right.
Yeah.
You can actually do a relative analysis of, an arrow of time with speed of light in one direction, and then you just increase the amplitude, and you'll still get the same leading edge.
Right. But my question to you is, General, where in science, where in physics, did anybody ever say that the front leading edge of a wave couldn't go faster than c? Einstein never even said that.
Hello.
Yes, General. It's George.
Oh, am I coming through?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Do you want to answer the question,
Yeah.
George?
Yeah. No one made that claim, and in fact, it's impossible.
There you
because
go.
You look at Maxwell's equations of light. Look at the permeability constants and the permittivity constants. When you 1 divide by the square root of the product of those constants, you will get C. And
Well, yeah, the square root
in
of the
order for
permissivity and the
C to,
permittivity will be the constant of C.
Steve,
But
yeah, and when you
it's a fundamental
when you
freaking
play,
rule in physics.
Steve, the thing that's
yeah,
being
and
missed.
one second,
George, go ahead.
Okay.
Somebody.
And then there's a paper. I forgot his name. George Ellis, I think his name was, the South African astronomer. I think because even you must have read. You said you read the paper, the variable speed of light paper.
Oh, I've read that. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. So he then says, look, you'll have to literally change all of physics. That doesn't even okay. So if you change all of physics, just by this, by the change of C. That doesn't comport with reality that we're seeing now. Either way,
Right.
So not just now, but also when we look at distant quasars, the same equations again would not fit the distant quasars. Meaning, when light leaves the quasar and it passes through material in between the quasar and us, and we see the fine the split spectral lines of when the redshift gets redder in the continuum, then you know that an object is actually behind this debris, and that light did indeed come through, but it came through at a constant rate. So if you change C, from our perspective, you cannot explain the composition of those distant objects,
No.
and you cannot even utilize basic physics here on planet Earth.
Right, because I mean, here's the thing. Okay, there's fundamental quantities in the universe. We all know that. C is one of them, right? But there's also called the permeability of free space and the permittivity of free space, right? And the fact remains that the permittivity is literally defined to be the reciprocal of the speed of light squared times the permittivity of free space. So
Actually,
if,
no.
Yeah.
no, that's literally the definition. Wait, do I
The
have
other way
backwards?
around. Permeability is set at 4 pi times 10 to the minus 7th. That's the permittivity or permeability. The permittivity is 8.859 picofarads per meter. That's experimentally determined. So the speed of light follows from those two constants. Now, the thing that this Troy or whatever misses, and a lot of these young Earth creationists miss, is the fact that permittivity of free space, E0, shows up not only in that equation, but in Coulomb's force law. Now, if the speed of light were not the same back in the past as we're observing today, then the forces, electromagnetic forces between electrons, protons, and so on, would also have to change. And matter as we know it.
Do I have it backwards, George?
Pardon?
Permittivity is reciprocal of speed of light squared times permeability of space.
Yes, it is, but that's...
Oh, I do have it right. Okay, so permittivity is defined as the reciprocal.
The square root of the product of mu 0, E0.
Yeah, epsilon of mu.
Permittivity, mu 0 is permeability.
So the reciprocal of 1 over c squared mu 0.
It's 1 over the square root of the product of permittivity and permeability.
All right, whatever.
Okay.
Long story short, the fact remains.
The speed.
I believe. But the fact remains, though, if you change that speed of light constant, the fact remains either A, to remain with using quantitative analysis, that either A, the permittivity of free space, or the permeability must remain the same. There has to be something that remains constant, right?
Yes.
So either permittivity or permeability must remain same if C changes. Now, if that was the case, how would we have atoms form?
Yeah, Steve, that's what I'm getting at. That is the fact that okay, the permeability, which is a magnetic constant, that's pretty much the same in free space as most materials except for ferromagnetic materials. We've always observed that in most materials to be the same as the free space value, or very near it.
Sure.
Permittivity is the one that changes.
Yes, I agree.
Considerably in different media. So for the speed of light to have been different in the past than what we're observing today would require that the permittivity, the electrostatic constant, permittivity, would have had to have been different in the past. Now, if that were the case, then also the Coulomb's force law would have to have had changed.
Right. Right. How would you overcome the Coulomb barrier if that was the case to form atoms?
You couldn't. I mean, matter would be different in the past than what we're observing today if the speed of light were different.
That's exactly what I would say too.
Yeah.
But see, I was trying to get there with Troy, but he didn't let me get there. So unfortunately.
Yeah. Well,
if you want to assert there's a variable speed C model, then you have to take into account the change of permittivity in free space.
He obviously did not understand the connection between the speed of light and the Coulomb's force laws and how that's going to impact matter.
Right, and I think he had mentioned. Okay, this is what's really weird. He had talked about the universal expansion primordial, that at some point there was an inflationary period, which I think most people kind of agree with. That doesn't mean that C changed. All that means is that space-time inflated faster than C, which is allowed for in general relativity. Okay.
Yes, I mean he does not understand the fabric of space, time, and
right. You and I follow Minkowski interpretations, right?
Yeah.
You follow Minkowski space rather than Lorentzian.
Right.
Right.
Well, I mean, one way to
we're on the same page.
One way to think about it is this: as space-time expanded, C within it was remaining constant.
Absolutely. Right. We didn't even get to that. That's the funniest part. I was like, do you understand that you're conjecturing that C has changed when no physicist I've ever ran across or read suggests C has changed because of that actual variable speed of light model has been debunked. It is not supportive for the fact that what we talked about earlier, it would literally change the permeability and permittivity of space such that atoms could not form because you would never overcome the Coulomb barrier. Yes or no?
I'm sorry, my connection was breaking up. What about the barrier?
What I was saying was that the variable speed of light model was unsubstantiated because had C changed, it would affect the permeability of free space and the permittivity of free space such that atoms are not formed because they would never overcome the Coulomb barrier.
Correct.
That is the point that I was trying to relate to him. And that if he suggests that C changed, like Hovind has, we would not exist.
Correct. That's been my argument all along. Matter would have had to have been different, or may never even have formed in the past had the permittivity of free space been different than what we're observing today.
Hallelujah. That's what I've said all along. Yes, I admit, I'm sorry, guys. I've been drinking. It's Veterans Day. I'm a little buzzed. I'm sorry I pissed Troy off, but whatever. I mean, my science is not wrong. I mean, I'm sorry. This is something that I actually pride myself on, that I know a little about this topic.
But that's a very simple argument, and I don't know why these guys miss it all the time.
Steve, do you think Troy will even come back again?
No, he thinks that he was probably overtalked, but maybe he did. But the problem is, I'm not going to let somebody sit there and throw out shit and not address them. Right, when he said they talked about Gentry's halos, okay, he ran into somebody that actually knew about the Gentry halos, and I don't brag often, but I probably understand Gentry's argument better than anybody here, because I did a 2-hour freaking long presentation on this. I researched Gentry's halos, and I understood it back when I was in the early '90s. Right, you might do okay, but General, give him some props here. Do you really think I'm clueless when it comes to Gentry's halos argument?
No, in fact, I reviewed your the PowerPoint that you wrote up, and it was completely fine. Like you even went down the route of the differential equations of how this all works. Like you went
because I wanted people to understand how it works. I want
Yeah,
you to
yeah.
understand how,
So it's
when you talked about the logarithmic energy decremental collision coefficient or the mean free path, I want somebody to understand what is happening when these particles being emitted and how does it affect the surroundings. I wanted people to understand what a halo actually was. That's
Yeah.
why I got into the actual physics behind it.
But
Hey, you know what? I might not be Fiona, but
anyway,
I'm not an idiot when it comes to science. By the way, I love you, Fiona.
no, Steve,
Sorry, you got mad.
You did fine. I may have to. I'm just gonna go get some tea or something. I don't know. I'm kind of, in a way, I'm kind of disappointed because Troy initially came off as quite genuine, I guess, in the sense that okay, maybe you can actually have a discussion. Then he just went all Ken Hovind on us at the end there, and oh, you're just making assertions, blah 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 blah. Yeah. Anyway, but I think I'll just leave it at that. He didn't like being called nonsense. well, Rumpus. It's true though. Everything I've seen in his book is just absolute nonsense, and it's only 10 pages. That you can view on Google, the Google books. So anyway,
I got distracted. I had an old well, can I be blunt? I had an old F buddy just contact me that I care about a lot, and she's like, "I miss you," and I'm like, "Okay, you know what? Fuck this science shit. I got like a chick here talking to me." Sorry.
yes. So go ahead, Steve. Just you do your thing, and I'll go make some tea.
What can I say? She says, "Where are you? Miss you. Can you come over and visit me in my beach? Don't have awesome backyard anymore, but still have me and my dogs." I'm like, "Yeah, I'll come visit you." She was cute. But anyways, when it comes to science, I mean, I defer to a lot of people. I really do, and I don't talk about my own fucking personal qualifications much. But my God, this is basic fucking physics. I know Rumpus and General know far more about this topic than I'll ever know, but I don't think that I'm illiterate when it comes to it. And I really want to address with Troy the fact when he started throwing out the shit about polonium halos that he was completely and utterly wrong. It wasn't a matter of interpretation. It's not a matter of who believes what. As a matter of fact, what's funny is when I did this presentation and I had told FactFinder, "Hey, this is my presentation." You know what FactFinder said? He said, "Oh, well, Steve, you know what? You're wrong. All you did was some kind of reiteration of what's found on Talk Origins." Well, bullshit. Go look at my fucking presentation. I really nominally look at Talk Origins. Matter of fact, most of it I gleaned from myself. That I gleaned from the actual data and said, "This is how I interpret it." And I had many people that know physics look over that and said that's how they interpreted it well. So I'm not going to shave. I'm doing a yeared. But anyways, I just kind of think it's funny that when I invite people on to actually talk about the science and they try to, people start leaving. Like I'm actually kind of, and I'm not going to go on too much about it, but I'm kind of upset that Sam had left. I mean, I wanted to keep Troy on the human chromosome 2, and I asked very pointed questions directly revolving it in accordance with what Ruif wanted and probably CRISPR, but people kind of left. So I'm kind of upset by that a little bit, that I don't think Sam was being very generous when he was being engaging with Troy. So you can follow me all you want for that, but I'm sorry. I don't think Troy was not. I don't think Sam was being very helpful in the dialogue. But I know Riv was trying to. And by the way, we all know it's on the open now. I mean, I asked Riv specifically if we can talk about this. We all know Riv, has been fighting, an extensive battle with cancer. He's doing extremely well. And he decided to join us for today to talk about this. And yet people kind of migrated to something else. And I didn't want to migrate to something else. I wanted him to talk to Ruif about this.
Steve, do you think now, since we've had, well, how many debates have you had so far on your Hangouts? Like, we've had Troy, then we had Paul. How many others did you have? Like professional, young, like you had also, what's his name?
Who?
The mathematician.
Oh, Jay Hall.
Jay, and is that it? Only 3 so far?
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Jay Hall was actually pretty good.
Yeah. So now, do you think the science debate is sufficient enough to change their perspective?
No.
Because you see, with science, they just get shut down and then they rage quit, or they just go, I don't know. Versus, what's the reason why they hold to this position? And that's obviously the biblical interpretation.
Well, what's funny is, people are kind of like upset that I've been drinking on Veterans Day and that I didn't give maybe a fair response to people that wanted to join in. I really tried to. I mean, I wanted people to actually be able to engage. The fact was remaining that when I asked him a very specific question, dealing very specifically towards something, he answered incoherently on things that had nothing to do with the actual topic, right? I mean, when you start talking about irrelevant concepts and things that have nothing to do with the actual question at hand, it doesn't matter whether I'm drunk or sober. Why bother with that kind of line of questioning? I just don't find a need to. If people disagree, that's fine. Anybody?
I don't see anything wrong in the way it turned out. Like at the start, I was honestly about to go to bed again.
Well, he started.
Because
I mean, how many?
so damn long ago.
Well, how many times do you keep bringing it back to vestigial organs? What did vestigial organs have to do with anything that I was talking about? I asked very specific questions. When I was talking about human chromosome 2 and the fusion site, I asked him very specific questions, which I wanted to ask across the board. But he kept bringing it back to vestigial organs. So, you know what? Fault me, don't fault me. It is what it is. I mean, I think it was a good hangout. I think we asked him very pertinent questions, and he just didn't answer them. But
Obad is in the room. Give Obad some beautiful
hello
Australian, quality time to talk.
Are you trying to flirt with me now?
Well, I'm getting a lot of fair criticism, and God knows I respect everybody that gives me fair criticism. Be that as it may, as much as I respect the criticism, it still doesn't change the fact that he didn't address the actual questions. And when he started talking about halos, he was completely missing the mark.
I was face bombing the whole time.
His physics was bullshit. So why would I indulge that? I don't. Why is it? Do I have to say, okay, this guy's a creationist, and I have to say, oh well, he makes sense when it comes to Gentry's claims. Gentry's claims are wrong, and I can demonstrate why they're wrong.
The guy made absolutely no sense in anything that he was trying to say, and the funny thing was he just so dismissive. He just simply threw everything scientific out the window as just conjecture and hypotheses that are untested, unproven. I mean, what the fuck? He's literally trying to shift the burden of the proof and making it so that you can never satisfy your burden of proof, regardless however much evidence that's ever been provided. All he's just simply saying, as I was also typing out in the live feed before, he was just so hyper skeptical that the thing is, with science, we have a model that works, we have the evidence that backs up the model that works, and he's saying that's all conjecture, and yet in response he offers something that doesn't work that is backed up by absolutely no evidence whatsoever. So I just I was face palming the entire time that I was listening to him. I didn't listen up to the point where he rage quit, but like, it was long enough that I knew nothing was going to come out of this person.
Well,
Were you
I
face
kind of agree
palming like
with
a
you.
dummy
So,
door and a thunderstorm?
you know, if anybody wants to complain,
Yeah, you could say that if you want.
if anybody wants to complain that, you know, I've been drinking today because, you know, it's Veterans Day and that I didn't give a fair moderation, sure, I'll accept that. Shit is what it is. But I still think it was horrible. I don't think that had it been anything else, he would have done anything differently.
I haven't participated in too many of these, but it seems there is a common thread when you're having discussions with these young Earth creationists, and that seems to be the argument they're always falling back on is, how do you know that the speed of light wasn't different back in the past, or other things weren't different in the past, because we haven't been around long enough to observe and make those observations, and it always falls back on that, and you can't argue with it.
That's the Ken Ham argument. Were you there? And he seemed to also be channeling a bit of DD as well with his how do you know that it wasn't different back in the days, like the uniformity of nature argument. It was just ridiculous.
I mean, they don't seem to accept the fact that you can extrapolate from the data back to the past and surmise how things were back then.
Yes. Yeah, you know, and my whole point was this. Look at, succinctly put, if you're going to hypothesize that decay rates can change, give me a reason why they can. Yes, I agree. K capture and electron capture, same thing, can change decay rates. I get that. Sometimes very effectively, depending on the isotope. There is one isotope, I think it's beryllium 7 to 8, I believe it is, that actually can be magnitudes of 100 or hundreds of magnitude, but that's when it's an isotope that has been charged. It is an ion, okay, meaning that it has is missing electrons. It's actually been in a negative charge, and one of those isotopes can be affected by electron capture a lot. But for the most part, electron capture only affects an isotope some between 2.2 and 0.8%. It's very small.
But even if you're given that 100, even if you're given that 100
that's not going to go
times,
from 4.5 billion years to 7,000 years.
Exactly. At the best, even if you say 100 times, it's still going to end up with like 50 million years. Like, what the fuck?
And uology, not only would you have to do that for one isotope, you would have to do that across the board to all isotopes. And we know, you know as well as I do, that the electron capture is not going to be the same between all isotopes. It doesn't make any sense, right? So yes, things can change the decay constant, but not to that degree, and not for a factor of 4.5 billion years to 7,000. Even with carbon dating, I don't remember. I did the math and I did the logarithms, and I came out to about 400 to 1 on carbon dating to match the rate studies that Dr. Safadi had. And it wasn't that hard. It was just basic manipulation of logarithmic functions. But 400 to 1, you would have to have a difference of.
Yeah, I went through a calculation similar to that regarding the permittivity-free space to explain a slower speed of light that the young Earth creationists would require in order to have the observable universe, or the Earth being, 6,000 years old. And it turned out in back calculating that the permittivity-free space would have to have changed about 500,000 times from what we're observing today, which is, totally absurd.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, what is this guy's profession? Is he just simply a chiropractor and that's it?
Yeah.
So, did he do something in physics or something? I don't get what kind of actual rigorous training or knowledge he has of this thing.
No, he wrote a book, and in general, you read what I read, so the rumpus, but he left. But do you want to give a brief synopsis of the physics that he was talking about in his book? It was
Well,
pretty
you were
bad.
having well,
Oh,
you were
Jim
having
left.
a discussion. I was doing a Google search on him, and it looks like more or less he's just self-taught. He hasn't had any real formal training in science other than what he might have had to study to get his chiropractic license.
Yeah, it's rare that you actually see something. You see a chiropractor trying to put forward an argument on astrophysics and geology. I mean, come on, he's touching on fields that you need years and years of formalized training before you can even be considered close to being qualified to do this stuff. It's all right to understand the basics, but like if you have actual professionals in the field telling you, shut the fuck up, you're wrong, I think it might be time to start listening to them.
I heard Steve.
You would think, right? You would think.
And I was like, I'm coming back. I'm coming back. Because I was playing it while I was making tea. Be outside, though.
My friend has no idea what I do online here. Hang on.
Let me just. In fact, I'm going to do that. Troy Lawrence. I'm actually going to read this out. I'm going to show everyone in the room. Just unbelievable.
I get all these notifications. Who's messaging me now?
Okay,
Yeah, the
can you
hangout
guys-
tool's going crazy.
Wait, is this? Oh, maybe Google Books will have it. Are you guys getting a call from someone?
It's not me.
Is there a way I can view this? Remember I was viewing it, Steve? Like,
What? God, I've been so
Remember I was
mad that this hangout went so bad. I'm like, you know what? I didn't think it went that bad. I mean, sorry. Like I said, it's Veterans Day. Give me a little freedom here. To, enjoy my fucking cocktails and shit. I don't drink that often.
It's not that the hangout itself was bad. I think it was just because the source
here,
material was not that good.
Okay,
Well,
can you guys?
I'm a war hero. Fuck you all. Can you guys tell what these are? Actually, you know, I'm missing two. Actually, let's play a drinking game. What is this one?
We can't quite see. It's very blurry. Your camera's not that good.
Sorry. What is this one?
I still can't make that out.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. Is it my connection? But I'm just.
It's fucking red, dude. What is this one?
Mate, it's red, but the metal itself, I can't see what's in it. What's on it.
Well, you don't care about the metal. You don't have to know about this. You can see the ribbon and tell what it is. All right, we'll ask the side chat here. Maybe you guys know more than he does. Christine, my love. By the way, I want you to meet my friend Christine. She was my ex-neighbor for 20 years, I guess.
Hey, Christine.
Christine, by the way, do you guys remember a girl a long time ago by the name of Faith Love Hope?
No.
Isaiah, you do, right, Isaiah? Isaiah?
He's gonna go back and
Anyways,
look at Big Butted Women.
this is Faith Loves Hope's doppelganger. Christine, exactly her twin. No relation, but they look exactly alike. But look at Christine. I got my medals today. You have to unmute.
Do I read this out or not?
Talk.
I can. When you look up close, the resemblance kind of disappears.
What is it? What is there?
When you look at them close, the resemblance kind of disappears.
Yeah, Christine's way hotter, I know. Right.
Yeah.
We're gonna play a drink game right while Christine fixes her mic.
To making my tea. See all that.
All right. Well, Christine is fixing her mic. By the way, Christine, look at it. Biker dude. Yeah. She likes biker guys.
That is.
What?
Oh
fuck
man,
yourself.
Steve, you're just, You're pulling on all the girls quite nicely. Like
you
if
know
any
what?
Australian girls
Hey,
can see
hey,
that
dude, I
there's
love
an
Christine.
expression.
I love Christine. I've been enthralled with Christine since like, oh my God, when I was in college, Christine and I used to head to the bars together, and I had this like major lust for her, but I thought she was out of my league. And many years later, you know, we kind of like actually like got reintroduced and became really good friends. And I missed her to this day. So whatever. But she
Such a
can't talk
I
right
misogynist.
now,
met
so I can make up any
Christine.
story I want, and she can't refute that. So
Yeah, I bet
Christine,
she's really
unmute.
blushing. And
No, she's like, fuck you, Steve. Unmute yourself, Christine. But we're gonna
Such a
play a game
misogynist.
while yeah, I'm misogynist. I got my beer and I hate women. Yes, except for Christine. I love her. All right, so we're gonna guess here. Live chat. What is the first ribbon? The red one. Metal. What's this one? Anybody? Looks like a purple. That's not a fucking purple heart. Does anybody know what that first one is? Hey, good conduct medal. This one, national defense. This one, armed services expeditionary medal. That's actually the highest. I think it should be actually higher. And Southwest Asian expeditionary medal with two bronze clusters that I'm missing. But anyways.
Iron
Christine,
Cross.
Christine, do you want me to unmute you? Can you figure it out, Christine? I can manually unmute you. Let me try manually unmuting her. Maybe she doesn't know how to do it.
Who thought of that? That's a terrible idea.
Oh shit, it won't let me work. Now people are saying the feed stopped.
Yeah, all throughout the
I have
live
all these
live
thousands of people
YouTube feed,
watching and the feed stopped.
it's not so much the feed stuff. The feed has been really lagging out on the outside. I was
Has it?
watching on the YouTube channel beforehand. It was literally cutting in and out every few seconds. So sometimes some of the words were missed when you were still talking with Troy.
Oh. Well, now you tell me.
Well, I was screaming that in the live chat.
What the fuck was I supposed to know, man? I was just tearing them up because you didn't know what the hell plutonium halos was. Yeah, yes, Christine. Christine, you know, I don't know if Christine remembers me. I had like a goatee down here, but now I'm laying an auger out. But Christine, talk to me, girl. I missed you. Yeah, this is the story of my life. Every woman in my life ignores me like this. I'm used to it.
Fiona, good night. Good night.
Yeah, even she's bored by this.
That's because
Good
we don't
God,
have
Christine, you're
we don't have
embarrassing me here,
Ronnie to
girl.
trigger her. We don't have Ronnie here to trigger Fiona. That's why she's bored.
Oh, we should talk about Ronnie. I'm sorry. My bad. What's pi again? I'm sorry. Does anybody remember what pi it is? I don't. 3.141592653589979 32383333279. Hey, it's more than you know or two.
Yeah, I know, but come on. You really needed to know that many digits?
No, but I had it memorized to God knows how many decimal places years ago. Like 30.
It's unnecessary to even like it's
I don't know why I
unnecessary in
did.
modern usual day usage.
Okay, I'm getting concerned here that Christine has not unmuted herself. I don't know if she's like scared to like go on air or that she doesn't want to reveal herself.
Dear.
Hey, she's one of the very few women that I actually very cared about back in my day. But she was messaging me on Facebook, so I'm like, okay, come on here. So
Can you still unmute her though? She
you know
hasn't
what?
been typing either.
I know. I went to control panel. It won't let me unmute her, so she may have to like come back in. She may have to like hit F5. Christine, if you can hear me, hit F5 and it'll refresh your page. And then you click the very top to unmute. Maybe she can hear me.
Anything? Oh, did she?
Well, I don't know. She heard me. Something she
Something happened.
left. Yeah, something happened. Yeah. Okay. Let me try
There
to
she is. There she is.
Okay, I'm showing broadcast now. Christine, go to the very top and there's a little mute button that looks like it says mute microphone. A little microphone button. Click that and you can actually talk if you have a microphone. I don't know if she has a microphone.
Well, that would be that would be helpful.
You know what? Thank God she's cute. I never said she was smart, but she is cute. No, actually, she's fucking really smart. Christine, okay. Look to the corner where there's a little blue. Okay, go all the way over your mouth, and in the very left-hand side, it'll have a little pull-out. And at the very top, there'll be a chat thing. That'll allow you to chat internally if you don't have a microphone. But you should have a microphone. I'll put test there. Can you read this? I don't know what else to do, guys. Christine. Oh, wait, no, that's George. Yeah, no, George, I didn't care if you can read it. George, I'm like test in the side chat, and George's like, yes. Anyways, I wish you guys could actually talk to her, but unfortunately, I don't think she has a mic or knows how to use Google Plus.
Yeah, that's a pity, isn't it? Dear.
Christine, message me on Facebook if you don't understand how to use it. I'll walk you through it, girl. But anyways, this is the doppelganger to Faithful of Hope that I mentioned before in the past.
Hi, my name is Christine. How you guys doing?
Yeah, not the same. I know her voice all too intimately.
Oh, damn, I think I almost have it.
She's messaging something on Facebook, so she obviously can hear me. My voice is shot today, by the way, Christine. Sorry, because I've been drinking. Let's see what she says. By the way, she means more to me than all you fucks, so piss off.
How much more?
A lot. She said, I did what you said. What the fuck? I guess I have no mic. I don't know what to tell you, Christine. I do not have a mic on your computer.
I have an idea. Let's all talk about Christine. Make this hangout all about her.
Yeah, it's all about Christine. She's the topic of the hangout. Well, you know what? I didn't know you didn't have a mic, Christine. I thought you at least had a mic on your desktop. But anyway, since you can't respond to us, I guess we can say whatever we want about you. Kind of a cool male chauvinist thing, but anyways, in Facebook, I just want to catch up with her. I mean, God, I haven't heard from her. And I moved down here 2 years ago, and when I moved, I said goodbye to her because she was my neighbor that I've known 15, 16 years, and I was hoping to like run into her in San Diego, but it never happened. So we kind of like just lost touch with each other. But
Where did General go?
She says, "Bite my ass, dork. You are so very wrong." Story of my life, Christine. You know what? Yeah. If I had like $1 for every time a woman gave me shit, I'd be a very, very well-off man.
Trevor, come in. Trevor, you want to explain yourself there? He thinks that you're a wombat, Steve.
I have missed her. She used to give me the best sarcastic bullshit of anybody that I've ever known. I mean, she's about 4'2", tattooed all to hell, biker chick, doesn't take crap from anybody. So, and now she says I look older than her. Fuck you, Christine. You know what? I don't know what it is. I just want to try something different. Okay? Yes, I look older than you, but whatever. You know what? I don't care. I wanted to try something different, and this is how I'm going. I'm going long hair. I mean, my hair is like really getting long, actually, and I had a goatee down to here, so. She's like, you look older than me. Well, you know what? I'm smarter than you too.
Trevor, what do you mean by that?
Oh, by the way,
say,
Yology, I love
I'm not
that.
sure.
I love that meme, by the way, you made, that little post on Pi. That was fucking brilliant. Fucking brilliant. Seriously. Dimensions, units, measurements, irrelevant. And the Clown Crowd Posse goes, well, Pi, it matters what measurements you use. No. No, it doesn't. Oh, God. Christine's
what?
actually being nice to me in Facebook. I hate it when she gets like this. You're supposed to be mean to me, Christine. That's just what I'm used to. I think she likes my longer hair. We gotta get her a microphone, right? You guys want to know about my deep dark past? Well, she's intricately related to my deep dark past.
Christine, if you just have like an iPhone headset or something like that, just plug it in. That'll work.
Yeah, an iPhone would work. Yeah, I've got an iPhone.
Doesn't have to be an actual like standalone microphone or anything like that.
I would love to hear from you. My God, I mean, Christine was like one of my favorite people of all time. You guys don't even know how much I actually cared about this woman. I was never in love with her, but I certainly cared about her to no end. I mean, we had some of the funnest times ever, just going out and hanging out. And she says my iPhone is plugged in. Okay, well, get on your iPhone and come to hang out on your iPhone.
Oh, she might have turned her mic off on the
She's on a
setting.
hotspot. She says my iPhone is plugged in on a hotspot.
I'm not even sure what that means.
Well, she's probably at Starbucks. How do you turn the mic on? Fuck if I know. I don't have an iPhone. Usually it's a little button on the iPhone, isn't it? Like in the Android system? Does anybody have an iPhone that can explain to her?
I'm not sure. I don't ever go hangouts on my phone though, so I'm not sure about that.
There should be a little button that has a mic thing that you just like turn the mic on.
George is saying on the phone. Yeah. At least no, sorry, no, my bad.
Yeah, because I can't do it from the control panel. Christine, do you just want to call me directly and I will talk to you on the phone? Because I don't care about these fuckers. You got boobs,
she doesn't want to
and
talk.
I will take boobs over any of these guys any day of the week. So, and I'll be happy to talk to you for a while. Actually, I could probably use the conversation. So, if you want me to disconnect with this, I can call you directly. All right, guys, I'm done. I'm gonna hang up on this. Sorry, Christine is like my dear friend. She has boobs and she's hot. So she wins out on you guys. What am I gonna say? Sorry. Look at her. Look at her. I'm gonna present her. I mean, is she not freaking adorable? Look at that face. You know. We went out for like a minimal amount period of time and didn't really go very well, but I don't know. I just been friends with her so long that I think the world of her. So anyways, I'm going to end this phone call anyways. So guys, my broadcast, thank you very much for supporting me. I'm sorry the fact that I drank a little bit and that Troy's, it didn't go as well as I thought it was going to be about, Troy's thing. I don't think he really had any argumentation. When he started talking about polonium halos, it was
Oh, he had
basically
nothing. He had absolutely
a
nothing
done
at
deal.
all.
Yeah, so I don't think I wrecked anything by not really giving him any latitude because he didn't really want to address any of the issues. He didn't really talk about genetic entropy. He didn't talk about human chromosome 2. He didn't talk about anything that we really wanted to talk about. So,
I mean, fission. What the fuck?
yeah, I didn't get that either. When he started talking about, it's human chromosome fission over fusion.
No. What I think that what he was trying to say was that originally the ancestors of all hominidids had 46, and every other ape out there had a fission event to split it into 48, which doesn't quite make sense because then you'll have to have 2 fission events in order to go up to 48.
Yeah.
And then you also it has to split perfectly down the telomere, the central telomere, and then it also the original chromosome also had to have 2 centromeres, and also the ends of the telomere that actually had split had to regrow back as well. So you had a whole series of exceptionally improbable events. I just don't see how that could possibly even function.
Well, it's funny because I had asked him, what does the data indicate? When you're looking at this fusion site, what do you see? I couldn't even get a straight answer from him, right? I mean,
Because he had nothing.
Yeah, it's obviously a telomeric to telomeric end-to-end fusion. You look at the hexameric repeats, but I knew what I was going into, but anyways, it was probably a bad day because I said Veterans Day and I've been drinking, whatever. But anyways, I want to thank you all for at least watching this. I know I had a lot more viewers when I had done the hangout on the Second Amendment, but I still have a pretty large crowd right now. I mean, I have dozens of people watching, but we're going to call it a night. I'm going to go talk to my friend, and I bid you guys adieu. So any last words real quick? Ocean
wants to come in.
Well, you know what? Fuck Ocean.